All right, thank you all for joining us. I hope that you all had a chance to watch that video, um, with Mike Tyson. All right. Did you all get a chance to watch it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. I hope that
Yes.
you all could kind of see the lessons in that we're going to talk about. Hope y'all might know where we're going with it. So I'm not going to say anything about it. I want to see what you all got out of it. We'll go ahead and open it up now for anyone that want to share what lessons were in that video.
So a lot of lessons. One of the key lessons I saw was just how he, his initial reverence for his trainer, Customato. Said everything he did was gospel, and basically he could do no wrong to him. Do no wrong. He was just completely and totally immersed in discipleship with him, and he was on the right path when he was doing that. When he was a disciple of Customato, and pretty much viewed him as being perfect. And in fact, Customato was training him to perfection. And then the fact that even when he would, Customato was all about always pushing him. And even when, Tyson might develop a certain skill, he would just push him on to the next skill. He was never enamored by Mike Tyson. He was always pushing him. You can be better. And, so what? You mastered one particular type of footwork now, but you're lacking in this area. So he was just constantly growing, and he never had time to be complacent whatsoever. And everything from after that just kind of went downhill. When he passed away, he just flop city. so just that reverence for his original trainer, and viewing everything that he did, the man could do no wrong. And it really helps when young men have somebody who they can idolize like that, or just really men just in general. When you have a leader that you can find no fault with, they're wiser than you. You're not looking for mistakes. You know that you're dependent upon them, and just absolute loyalty and just being a true disciple. So he was, who knows where he would be today in the annals of boxing had he, Customato, not died, and he would have stayed in that vein. That was one of the key things I saw.
Yeah, I want to share this. By the time I heard of Mike Tyson, which is early on, the first time, if I'm not mistaken, I heard about Mike Tyson was after when he won the belt. I watched it that night at my pawpaw's house, my mother's father. We were all watching that fight, and we remember how much it cost to pay for that fight, and the fact that the fight lasted half a round. And so that was my first time seeing him and ever hearing of him. Now, and I want you to think about this. Mike Tyson, Customato had already died when he beat Spinks. And so to me, in at that age, it might, I guess, somewhere in the mid 80s, somewhere up in there, 86, somewhere up in there, 87, somewhere up in there, I saw in my mind the greatest boxer I'd ever seen that night. But he was already on the downside. Customato had already died, and he was already going down. And so after that fight with him fighting, I think it was Leon, one of them Spinks brothers. It was one of the Spinks brothers. I think it was Leon, either Michael or Leon. I can't remember now. But after that fight, to me, it was like he was immortal. Because the next thing you see is Mike Tyson knockout on the Nintendo. you know, where he has his own game, you know, his own Nintendo game. And so to me, the man is immortal, you know, just in the eyes of a young person. You know, you're thinking this is the greatest boxer ever. Not that I had been some big boxing fan, but I know what I saw that night. But to think that he was already on the decline by the time he was unifying the belts. By the time he won his first belt and then second belt and third, because it was three major players with the belts, you know, the IBF, I think the IBO and the WBO, something like that. Well, I don't know if that was his third belt that he had gotten to unify the title, to become what they call the undisputed. I can't remember now, but he was already on the decline, even though the world was thinking this is the greatest boxer we've ever seen. And so you think about like what Brother Linda was saying, who knows, just like what Customato said in the video, if he remained determined and listen, what was the word he used? Undistracted. He will be the greatest fighter this world has ever seen. And we know now, you know, of course, the potential was there. He could have been the greater fighter. But now, of course, the people that made the video, and I'm sure most people that have followed boxing, they seem to think, he was not, you know, got a lot of potential. But and I say this, now this is what I personally believe. I believe he could have whooped anybody in boxing that had ever boxed had he stayed with what Customato had taught him. You know, I had never seen any of the earlier footage of him bobbing and weaving the way that he was to get in. And then so I'd heard about Customato and his, you know, legendary status. And I heard Customato had died, and I'd heard that he was on the decline, but I did not know to what degree. I just thought his discipline was gone. I just thought, okay, Customato is gone, so he's not maybe jogging as much as he used to jog, or maybe he's not training as much. And so, but I didn't know, you know, to watch that video, and if you all were paying attention, you see how his skills had changed. Now he's a target. He's not going in for the kill, bobbing and weaving and slipping past punches and planting his feet and replanting his feet to throw another punch. Now he's just relying on his old power, which, you know, to do that you have to have a chin, because what happened was he basically lost his defense and depended on his power. Well, the problem is, if you're going to do that, you have to have a stronger chin than your opponent. And so now he's relying on him going in the ring and fighting against opponents that don't have a stronger chin than he has. If you know what I mean when I say stronger chin, in other words, can take more shots. And well, he got in there when Evander Holyfield. Evander Holyfield had a stronger chin than he had. And so Customato understood he has a chin, but not a chin like that would carry him through the way he need to be carried through. So let's work on your defense, which is you bobbing and weaving as you go in and doing more work. And so you can see how he got lazy after Customato died. And he began to indulge in more of the world, you know, whereas Customato was keeping him away from those things. You need to be determined, and you need to be your mind need to be on boxing and not on women and chasing the things of the world. If you're going to box, you need to box. Well, when Customato died, his disciplinarian, he lost that discipline and he began to delve into the world. And so now, like what was said, his training became more about him losing weight and getting in halfway shape rather than beating his opponent. You see, and so, you know, I was just we'll go over these things spiritually. I want to hear what everybody else got to say about it.
I thought the video was pretty interesting just to see. 'Cause I never really watched boxing like that. For the most part, I never seen any Mike Tyson fights, and I always wondered, his, I guess just how good he was, and just basically just how he fought. And that video kind of laid out some stuff to kind of show, his, um, I guess his career in boxing. And it just looked like he was just in beast mode, when he was at 15 something years old, knocking grown men out, you know, probably 17. It seemed like, I think when he entered into the uh, pro, and you can definitely see that he had a much more stronger zeal for boxing, at the beginning. And one of some of the key details that I heard was how he said he stayed in the gym. He basically lived there. He didn't leave. And you can just see all the hard work that he was putting in, that he was dedicating to it. Basically, like he said, the gospel. He said, I believe, Customato's word is the gospel to him. And I guess that should be the mindset of anything that we do. What the Bible says, do everything with all your might. And so that was, to me, that was just a good example of what that looks like when we on fire for God. Uh, just like kind of how Paul was. Tyson started off swinging. You know, and the best thing about him, he had a heart to listen. You know, he had a heart to listen to the man and not tell him no, no, no. I think I like this way. I'm accustomed. He may have had a whole different understanding had a whole different way of fighting until Customato, taught him. And I just thought it was interesting how the techniques that Customato used. I mean, just teaching him, having a mind to teach him the way he taught him. I noticed one thing: he kept his foot on his neck. And what I mean is, he kept him grounded by not lifting him up, like telling, "Oh yeah, you the best. Ain't nobody can beat you." He ain't telling that to his face. He probably said that to reporters or whatever. Basically, basically let it without him being there. And I think, honestly, I think that's the way it ought to be if we got more growing to do. To keep us disciplined. And that's the way I see it. As he was keeping him disciplined to let him know, okay, yeah, you ain't arrived yet. You know, you still got more work to do. I see 100. You did this right, but I see a few things we need to talk about tomorrow. So you make sure you at that table tomorrow, and we'll talk about it. And he was willing to stay there. Whether he wanted to or not. He went. He went here about his correction. He went and got the correction that he needed, and that made me value correction more. It don't feel good. I'm sure Mike Tyson didn't. In his mind, he may have saw some stuff wrong, but Customato sitting on that sideline saw more that he probably didn't see, and he probably thought he was doing good in it. And that's what correction. I see that's why the Bible tells us to um, agree with our adversary quickly, because if we don't, it'll overtake us. And so I appreciated that from Customato. Them showing that in that video, uh, showing how he was there as a father figure to him, to keep him in line. And the other side of it was when he got around some yes men, all that changed. That's what they were saying. And, even getting around with the wrong people. I don't want to say too much. I know there's other people want to share it. Um, but just being around yes men, you can see his a decline. You can see when he was being lifted up, he didn't feel the need to put as much effort. You know, and what you say, he relied on his own self-righteous strength, which he was no longer going with the training that Custom Model taught him and being humble. He was a prideful man. He was proud. He got proud. And, you know, he thought he had something, even though he was, you know, still beating people. But you know, I think all that stuff got to his head, and it turned him into a monster. You know, going to jail for 3 years. You know, the Custom Model Mike Tyson wouldn't have been in nobody's prison, nobody's jail, nowhere. But the Don King Mike Tyson, yeah, he gonna be in jail all day. I don't even know Don King, but just looking at him, yeah, he ain't to be messed with. And then, you know, I think he got with that woman around that time as well. That wasn't a good move, and also took away from his strength. You know, it just all of those things. And you know, the one thing that he did have that he should have kept was Don King talked him out of it, which was the devil. He talked him out of him, you know, getting rid of his trainer that was brought up under Custom Model. You know, and I don't know, they didn't show too much about him. You know, I don't know everything about him and how that played out. I just heard a few things about him. I forgot his name, the trainer that came after Custom Model. But you know, I don't know too much about him. But I think that wasn't a smart move for him. He should have kept his roots. You know, to keep on going. But and there was a lot of spiritual lessons in that. Just seeing how important a great leader is to anybody. You know, a great leader being there, and how we're supposed to be disciplined and making sure we're keeping that leader's commands. You know, even if they are gone, that that he could have still kept going. Because I mean, if he would have paid attention, he would have knew. Okay, well, someday he gonna leave here. You know, he ain't. You know, right around the corner from that. But I just felt like, you know, he should have. He got into his head. And one other thing that I remember that I wanted to mention was that I felt like he said it out of his own mouth. He said, Mike Tyson said, and when he win, right after that he will go out and drink and go party. You know, if you know, I believe the old Mike Tyson wouldn't have been out there doing that. You know, he'd have been looking at, okay, you know, maybe watching something, you know, watching the tape or watching whatever, look at his wrongs and getting in the gym and fixing those wrongs. You know, and I'm not saying anything wrong with going out and enjoying yourself, but I feel like, you know, he picked up some bad habits and over the time period. And you can see it in his game. You know, he wouldn't have. He could have been undefeated if he would have kept his discipline, like Custom Model said. That's all I had to share.
All right. Anyone else?
Something
I'll
else.
share. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Thank you. So I wrote down a bunch of things because it was like amazing how it was speaking to me about the contrast of his life and our walk with the Lord. One of the things I noticed was that people could not see his flaws. They thought, oh, he's great, you know, but his trainer could see his flaws, and his trainer, and just how he wouldn't exalt him. He would always just keep you know, that there's more, you know, just keep him on that perfection goal. That was really big. And then when he was talking about how other heavyweights have potential, but because of their lack of discipline, they don't get there. That was another thing. And then also, when at the height of his zeal, when he said when he was consumed with desire to perfect his craft, he was locked away from the world and its distractions, a disciplinarian, and being what he called brainwashed and broken down and built up by his trainer. He said he was like a totally different person. So like the brainwash, that to us, you know, meditating and on the word and renewing our minds, it's like being brainwashed in a good way. And also just in our walk with the Lord, we really need to be committed 100%, and everything else needs to go. And that's when he was most successful, when he just, boxing was his life. That really stood out. And then when his trainer had said that the physical part of boxing is only about 25%, and then 75% mind and emotions, I was like, oh, because that's so true for us too. You know, our mind and what we're thinking and being focused, not like beating the air, but we have like a target, studying our enemy, or knowing, you know, the tactics of the enemy. So that all was coming to me. Also, when Don King came into the picture, somebody referred to that group as there's humans that are dressed like humans, but they're animals. And I thought of like wolves in sheep's clothing, because that was not good for Tyson. And then also when he had his first victory, you know, when he first won the heavyweight title, he was the youngest to win the heavyweight. What he did instead of, you know, going on how he was, and his trainer had already passed away at this point, I believe. He slacked off and he indulged in the things of the world, and then, you know, he was on his downward spiral from there. I think that was it. Yeah, so that's what I want to share.
So one of the things I found interesting, it was when his coach told him that there's some animals disguised as men, and just seeing how when you have male leadership, even if that male leadership is not steeped in the teachings of the Lord, still that man is a real man. Some of it's going to seep through. So just him giving him that advice that, you know, there's some animals disguised as men, and how we can relate to that scripturally, and just, you know, the discipline and things of that nature. It did end up costing him that his coach didn't teach him the ways of God in the long run. But that's just why it's so important. It's that male leadership, because I noticed that when I was an athlete, all the men in my lives, none of them really came with the word. They didn't, you know, that was not a part of our training. But yet and still, they were made in the image of God, and they had discipline, and just, you know, the ways of God come through irregardless. Ultimately, that's just going to always be the shortcoming in all sports. I remember when I first started coaching, and same thing, had a lot of success in Memphis. Memphis has a lot of stellar athletes, had a really good system, and it was getting a lot of success. And my goal was, okay, yeah, I'm going to be this is going to be a career. I'm going to be a career coach. And was having a lot of victories, winning championships. But guys were just getting in trouble. I mean, big trouble. They were getting fame and they just couldn't handle it. And I thought I was doing my job because we're winning. And my dad checked me one day. He pulled me to the side and he said, yeah, you know what? You're great. He said, you're a great coach. You can really teach skill, but your guys have no morality. He just told me straight up, like, you're a great coach. Like, you know the game, but you ain't teaching your guys any morality. So they get stardom and then they explode. So really, what are you? If you can't guarantee their future, you just like the rest of these guys, son. And I had to eat it, and then I had to do better. So like all the athletes who are still, you know, talking to me to this day, that's the group who I actually sat down and kind of raised them, you know, and showed them those things. And same thing, he trained Tyson up. He had him locked in the basement watching that film, but because he didn't give him the scriptures, because he didn't teach him the ways of the Lord, when he died, the devil just had his way. The devil just had his fill, and it's still costing him to this day. So that really stood out to me, that this would be a good thing to show any future coaches, you know, the aspect of you got to teach your guys more than just talent. And you got to give them the word. You got to give them Jesus, because without that, the devil's just going to take all that talent and all that hard work you poured into him, and he's just going to do with it what he sees fit. And they're going to be at his mercy. This is a classic example of that.
Yeah, I think about that scripture in the book of Proverbs that said that sin is a reproach to any nation. And in other words, what it's saying is, regardless of how strong and militant a nation is, if they're soaked in sin, then their sin is going to be the army that defeats them. In other words, they will erode from within. You know, it happened to great Rome. It's happening to America, you know, whether we know it or not. And it happens to a lot of nations. And it also happens to individuals. No matter how great you are, no matter how good you are at something, you know, if you dabble in sin and debauchery, then it's, you know, it's going to eat you up. You know, sin will become your new sport, if that makes any sense. And that's pretty much what happened to Mike Tyson. Sin became his sport, and he got involved in some things. He got involved with some people. I remember when I was in high school, it was this joke, because of course, you know, he married Robin Givens, and said, you know, why do you think she didn't change her name to her maiden name to Tyson? Because then it would have been Robin Tyson. In other words, that's what she was doing, Robin Tyson. She was getting money from him, you know, and you know, I know a lot of the story of Mike Tyson that they didn't show on the video. You know, how he sat on national TV with her, and she just completely just ran him down as a husband, just ran him down, and he just sat there. You know, Tyson to this day in his 60s. Tyson to this day is as meek as what you want to come, you know. And when I say meek, I mean he's steerable. If somebody with a strong personality get a hold of him, he's gonna go in their direction. The problem is the vultures know that, you know, and the devil knows it, you know. But to this day, he's that way. He's just as meek as he want to be. He's childlike, which is what we're all commanded to be like. He's still to this day, he's childlike. He's gonna follow whatever's in front of him, you know. And I just think it's a shame that somebody spiritual hadn't tried to, and I'm not saying that they hadn't tried, but it just seemed like, you know, he would be easy to lead to the Lord, you know, and things, especially when he can see that nothing else had worked out for him. So my question is, who's the heavyweight champion of the world now?
Is it Tyson Fury?
Yes, Tyson Fury. And if you read about him, he was born a preemie. He was born, I think, weighing 2 pounds. His father gave him the name Tyson because not because he wanted his preemie baby to be a fighter, but because he wanted him to fight out of that condition that he was in. In other words, I want you to survive this, son, at 2 pounds. I want you to finish growing and fight. The doctors are saying you might not make it. So I'm going to name you Tyson because I want you to fight past this. So he was actually named after Mike Tyson. Now you think about that, for you to have that kind of reputation, to be named after a man, because of your fighting ability, and then to have the devil just come in your life and you just follow all of that stuff and it just take you down. I think it was said during the video, nobody can beat Mike Tyson but Mike Tyson. And if Mike Tyson get it together and keep his mind focused, he won't even be able to beat himself. In other words, he'll, and when you pay attention to his life, that's pretty much what happened. Um, you all might not, well, I think you all might have come on the latter end of his career where he was in jail, in prison, and then just all of the world just gave up on him and just deemed him a criminal and that there's no hope. But you see now, if you notice now, it's kind of like he's coming back, not as a fighter, but people see his meekness and they know he's childlike. And they can see, yeah, you were done wrong. You shouldn't have went to jail because you really didn't rape that woman. All of these different things. People are seeing him as he really is. The way that Customato saw him. Customato saw him as a young kid in heart and somebody that could be great as long as you got him, in the reins, so to speak. As long as you can capture him, you can train him to be whatever you want him, whatever he want to be. And so I just thought that was interesting. And I was hoping that you all would see the spiritual aspects of his story and what we watched. That was just a very short glimpse into his life, what all took place. But I think the most important glimpse of it, the how no matter how the devil don't care. Listen, brothers and sisters, what I think what we see with Mike Tyson is a lot of wasted potential. Though you saw it, he was at his full place when Customato was alive, and no doubt I'm sure he could have grown some more. But we saw boxing like we ain't never seen before. That speed and that just that agility and the power to go with it. Just that being as fast and a heavyweight. Most of the time, heavyweights didn't come with that kind of speed. And they come with power, but not a whole lot of speed like that. That kind of speed was reserved for what they call what is that under heavyweight? Light heavyweight. Light heavyweights and middleweights had that kind of speed. Didn't too much have the power. You like that, heavyweights had the power. But Mike Tyson had both the speed of a light heavyweight and middleweight and the power to go with it, the agility like that. And so you saw all of that in the beginning and what could have been. But again, like what I said now, by the time I knew anything about Mike Tyson, I didn't know he was already on the decline. He was already, Customato had already died. His skill set had already changed where he wasn't, as defensive as what he should have been. And he was just relying on his power and taking one shot, trying to get one shot knockouts instead of, the skill that Customato taught him, And so, well, I don't want to wrap this up. I want to give other people a chance to talk about what they saw.
One thing I had got out of it was when he was talking about how he was only hearing what he did right, but nobody was telling him what he did wrong. It's I saw like how him hearing what he was doing right or just hearing good things didn't encourage him to keep doing right or to get better. And just seeing how like that correction was necessary. Like the correction is what makes us continue to do right or to get better. It reminded me of that scripture. I think it was Paul that had spoke about him keeping them in remembrance of those things that they already knew. So that was one of the things I got out of it.
You know, you all probably remember the story I told y'all about my old boss at Channel 8. And Channel 8 was the years that I worked there, every single year, we were the #1 ABC station in America. The #1 ABC station in America. And you're talking about thousands of ABC stations. And when I worked there, we were #1, not because of me, you know, the whole crew of people, but I was just blessed to be a part of that team. And they expected excellency. And so it was, you know, so when I went and worked at another TV station, I could, it was a completely different mindset where, you know, and some of you may have experienced that. You work at a particular job doing a particular thing and they expect excellency and they train you in that, and then you go to another job and it's the same thing, you know, as far as the same type of job, but it's a different morale. It's a different, oh, you ain't got to do that. You don't have to, you know, I mean, it's all kind of little stuff. And so then the question becomes, are you going to remain who you were at that excellency level, even when you're around a bunch of slackers? Or are you going to continue to excel, you know, and remain in what you know to do? See, now that's the thing. Or do you just adjust and adapt to where you are? Okay, so yeah, I didn't like, you know, I didn't like really doing this anyway. So I'm a just slack off. You know, if you're that type of individual, I would say you need to change. You know, you need to remain at what you know is the pinnacle of what you've been taught. Now, this is the purpose of why we wanted to watch this video, brothers and sisters, because you're being taught something in this ministry. And I can't go on your job and I can't go home with you and make sure that you are living what you're taught. But I can tell by your life, again, like what I was saying last night, I can tell by your life and whether or not you are where you're supposed to be according to your age bracket. I can tell whether or not you're really excelling in excellency, like what you're being taught, or if you're slacking after you leave here on Sunday mornings. Does everybody understand it now? I can tell that because I know God prospers people whose soul is prospering. In other words, their soul is growing and they're getting closer to God. I know that from my experience and from watching other people and how the Lord dealt with them. God always give you a championship belt when you remain on his program. But if you're slacking, and I mean in anything, I want to say this and I want to make this clear. Mike Tyson didn't drop every single thing that Cus D'Amato taught him. But he dropped a couple of things, and those couple of things made all the difference. Eventually, see, what happened was he was able to get all three of the belts after he dropped those things that Cus D'Amato, those couple of things that Cus D'Amato had taught him. He was able to get a belt, but he was not able to maintain his legacy and keep those belts. He was running off of steam, and it was only a matter of time before stuff was going to catch up with him. In the heavyweight division, you cannot stand in front of people taking punches. I don't care how good, because then it becomes about who's getting that lick in first. I've watched many boxing matches, and in matches where it looked like one could beat the other. It's on any given night. One man can beat the other one. It ain't one better than the other one. So what it becomes about after a while is who's going to land the punch first. And I've seen so many heavyweights get knocked out in mid-swing, where if they had landed their punch first, the other person would have been knocked out. So then we know that it becomes about defense. You can't just go in there relying on power and not take into account the kind of power that your enemy have or your opponent have, you see. And so many people just rely on being a part of a ministry like this. We getting taught the truth. Well, it takes more than getting taught the truth. You know, that you getting taught the truth is one thing. You know, if you let's think about what the Lord told his disciples, and I think it's in the 10th chapter of the book of Luke. They came back to him and they were rejoicing. Lord, even the devils are subject to unto us in thy name. And the Lord said, rejoice not that the devils are subject unto you, but rejoice that your name is written in the Lamb's book of life. That's your biggest defense. That's the thing you need. You're focused on the wrong thing. Devils are, yeah, they're subject to you in my name. So it's my name that's doing it. But rejoice that your name is written in the Lamb's book of life, you see. And so a lot of times people get caught up in what they're being taught. But the question is, are you dropping the ball in anything that you've been taught? In other words, are you doing some of it and then not all of it? Because listen, brother, you hear me say all the time, this word is meant to be lived. And if the devil, he don't care about what kind of front we put on, if we somewhere in our life is are compromising, the devil's going to exploit that, and he'll get in and he'll ruin the whole thing. I'm gonna tell you something about me, and my wife will tell you. You know, if I see an apple that's got a hole in it, I'm throwing the whole apple away. I'm gonna throw the whole apple away. I ain't cutting off where the hole is, because that worm only got the worm only got to get in on one side, a little bitty hole, and the worm will get in, and it'll eat the whole inside of the apple, if that make any sense. So I don't cut where the hole is off at. The whole apple is gone, as far as I'm concerned. If I know a worm done been in it, I don't want no. I'm not gonna share an apple with a worm. You see? And so oftentimes people looking at the outside and they're thinking, well, you know, I got a little compromise, just this little hole here where the worm that got in at, but I just cut that off and you know, we'll make it. No, we're not gonna make it work. If the devil get in on one side, he's in on the rest of it. You see? And that's what we're trying to show us with this. Mike Tyson had dropped all of the skills that Cus D'Amato had taught him. He knew enough to get the heavyweight championship of the world. But here was the thing, because he had compromised, he lost those belts, you know, and he did not, his legacy was not as great as what it could have been, you see. And so that is the purpose of us, one of the purposes of us watching this video, is for us to really examine ourselves, you know, and things, what we're being taught. Are we holding on to all of those things, or are we slacking when nobody's looking, you see? All right. Anyone else want to share?
I think I was going to say something similar to what you were just saying about him holding on to the teachings and holding on to everything. I just, I thought about what a drastic change we saw in his skill and his lifestyle when he left the teachings of his trainer like that. And I just thought about, if you're a disciple, then you should be a disciple no matter what. The teaching should go with you, whatever. If you're going to call yourself a disciple, then you don't stop. And I think about, Christ walked the earth, of course, and we didn't walk with him, but we still have his teachings. And so we're going to be disciples, like you said, we have to be disciples everywhere we go. And that's kind of what I was thinking about, I guess how drastic it looked to him, in his life in the video. That's what it looks like with us, spiritually to naturally. So, when we're following the Lord versus when we're not, like it looks just that drastic, and it has that big of an effect, on us, where we may have some victories along the way, but it's not as extensive as what the Lord intends for us to have if we're not following His word 100%.
You know, one of the things I think that was deceiving to Mike Tyson was the fact that after Costamato had passed away, of course, he still had reverence for him, you know, and I'm sure to this day he has reverence for what Costamato poured into him. But after Costamato had passed away, he was able to unify and to become the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. And but that was part of the deception. The victories right after dropping what you had been taught. That was part of the deception, you see. And that could be part of our deception as well. When we hear the word, we go right home, we live it, and you know, for a few days, we get a couple of victories, and then we say, okay, so I'm good now. I'm good. You know, my, I talked to my wife about different things, and my wife was telling me how women think, you know, and I imagine other men as well. But she was just telling me, she's a woman, so she was telling me how women think. She said, you know, a woman can know that 10 things is wrong with her, but the moment she get a compliment about one thing that she's doing right, then those 10 things go out the door. Then I'm all right now, you know. So yeah, I know about these 10 things, but if you compliment me on one thing that I'm doing right, then that negates the other 10 things that I'm doing wrong. Now I'm right in everything now, you know. They're riding on what's right instead of the 10 things that's wrong. That's just in the back burner because on the back burner, you see. And we better make sure as believers that's not our mindset. You know, um, we got a standard in the Bible. We got a standard in the Bible. And listen, brothers and sisters, well, I'm gonna say that for last. So anyone else want to share what they saw in the video, what they got out of it?
I do. Actually, what you just said was what I was gonna share about how, like, I didn't get to watch the whole thing, but I think I got pretty far just based on some of the other things that everybody else was sharing, and I kind of picked up those same things. But it seemed like a couple of the interviews that he did after everybody else in the world could see his vast decline, he was still in the interviews like they would ask him about the fight and he might have just won that fight and they could recognize like he wasn't the same Mike Tyson that he used to be, and they would ask him questions, you know, to that nature, and he would be saying, well, yeah, I did a few things wrong, I just think I needed to train better. And I like every time I heard him say that in an interview, I was like, it seems like he was deceived about how far away from where he was that he is, because he keeps thinking that, oh, I just need to, you know, spar a little bit more and do, but okay, but you drinking, you gaining weight in between every fight, you not, you know, you lost all of the skill and the technique, so it's a little bit more than, oh, I just need to do a few more push-ups at the gym. Like, you then reverted completely, you got completely away from what you were taught. And I was thinking along that lines, like knowing from myself that I've been in that place where you could be, it made me think of that. I think it was either a daily word devotion or a message when you were talking about like we can still ride, we can look in the mirror and still basically be riding on old glory. Well, this is who I used to be, and I'm still seeing that person of who I used to be, and thinking that I'm still there, but I didn't got way off track from who I was. And to me, that's what it seemed like his mindset was. Like, he knew the potential that he had in the great boxer that he once was and the techniques, but it was like I was wondering, like, I wonder if he was in his mind when I go to do this extra training that he was kept talking about in the interviews. Like, if he knew deep down inside, like, I'm not the same even though I'm winning, but I'm taking my wins as like my affirmation that I'm not as far gone as what it may seem. So I'm just gonna do a few extra, but maybe I was wondering if like he ever tried to get back to what the first trainer taught him, but because of how far gone he was, like he just couldn't get back to that place. Like if that makes sense. Like I was wondering, like I wonder if it just was so hard because he had completely let go of like some of those basic things, like how they were describing, you know, how I guess agile or quick, or I don't know nothing about boxing. The quickness of his feet and how he could reset. He had that basic foundation that really kept him in the beginning of his career, of like he could pivot well enough to reset for the next punch versus just kind of standing flat footed and just becoming I guess waiting for the hits. I guess that's how that works. And the last thing I heard before my phone was acting up, but one of the last interviews I heard was the guy had asked him, and this sounded like it was way years later. The interviewer had asked him like, how long do you think it's been since you departed from the, what was it called? What was it? Peekaboo or something? Some kind of method that the first trainer taught him, and like how he quickly dismissed, like, I don't know. But I thought that was interesting that it was like, don't bring that up, because like kind of, you know how like you could know something wrong, but if somebody bring it up, then you might get mad because like I know you ain't gotta point it out. That's just some of the things that stuck out to me, like kind of that deception, that spiritually you could be still kind of riding on that old glory when you're not there anymore, instead of recognizing that you're not in that same place and trying to, you know, get back right.
Yeah, it's you know, most of you don't know his whole story. It's a sad story. You know, ABC did a special on him. I think it was 4 hours long altogether, and it's a really sad story. Just so right now we're just talking about boxing, but he had a sad personal life. You know, his mother died right after he moved in with Customato. You know, his father wasn't really in his life, so Customato was his father, you know, and had took him in. I mean, he actually lived with Customato and Customato's wife, and you know, and so you have that. Then you have his relationship problems. He's been married, I think, 3 times, and first marriage was a disaster. Second marriage was a disaster. I think he got a few children. And most of you don't know, he had a daughter that died when I think the little girl was 5 years old. And so, you know, of course, you know, he went to prison and things like that. And after he got out, he tried to turn his life around and things. But he had a daughter that died. I think she was 5 years. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was a treadmill accident. I think he had a treadmill in the house, and I think she got on it and it got to going and it killed her. And it was sad to see. You know, he was doing an interview and he started crying. He said, I'm gonna have to just stop this interview. He said, you understand? And the man said, yeah, I understand. And he just took his mic off and just trying to make the man know, I'm not trying to be rude, but my daughter just died. You know, and that was a sad. So, you know, you can see the tragedy in the boxing side, but you also see how it plays out in his personal life, where he's a broken man, you know, and he's, you know, yeah, you can see it if you see the whole gamut of it. Now that's what happens as well spiritually. So, you know, if the devil whoop us spiritually, he's also whooping us naturally. You know, it ain't just the boxing, the spiritual side of it. It's the natural side. We're gonna lose in life as well if we don't take a hold of all of the skills that God has put in front of us. Everything, brothers and sisters, everything that we're learning is meant for us to use. You know, these aren't things that you can pick and choose to use. Everything that we're learning is meant for us to use in our daily walk with the Lord. And if we lay any of it down, then the devil uses our disobedience and our compromise to win against us in the end. And so that, you know, Mike Tyson has a lot of fans after the fact, uh, because people feel sorry for him, you know, of what could have been, and also just all of the tragedy that has happened in his life, all of the mistreatments that he had went through and things like that, being labeled a rapist when people with common sense know he didn't rape that woman, and things like that. So all of these things, all of the tragedies of in his life, it all stems from um, really his mentor dying and him not, and I want to make this clear, him not holding on to the teachings of his mentor. Like, his mentor wasn't letting him go out and drink and chase women and things. He wasn't letting them do any of that. You gonna stay in Catskills on my farm, and you gonna work out, and you're gonna you're not gonna go out in the world and do all of these things. That's because, listen, his trainer, Customato, had already seen that life and had already seen what it does to athletes. So no, you're not gonna do all of that. So you see how in the beginning Mike Tyson was saying how, well, I'm not doing that. All I'm doing is boxing, and that's my whole life. And then later on, after Customato died, he says, "Yeah, I'm still out there at Catskills, but it's boring." Yeah, I remember hearing him say that it's boring. I don't really get to do much. I'm just, So now his mindset done changed. At first, it was a privilege to not be out in the world and to be at that man's place training. But now his mindset done changed. Well, this is a boring life, and so brothers and sisters, that's the first step to backsliding. When God's life become boring to you, and when you feel like you're missing out on something, because you're gonna find a reason in some kind of way. You're gonna find a way to get back out there and let the devil beat up on you. You see, and so those are some things we wanted to point out. Now, my prayers, I really pray that you all got the lessons that the Lord really wanted us to see about that. All right. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I know. One thing I saw, just to go along with riding on and being lifted up in yesterday's glory, before he fought Buster Douglas, and I heard him say something along the lines of, "Hey, I don't really need to train because I beat the guys that already beat Douglas." So that mindset, I actually, you get to see that scripture along the lines of pride comes before a fall, and he literally took a fall. So it's just something how you can get caught up, as we used to say back in the days, you feeling yourself. So I can get relaxed. So you get in that comfort zone. A lot of times that's when you're gonna meet defeat. So it's very important to stick with the foundation, that solid foundation, as what was already being talked about. But that's all I wanted to say.
So another thing that I thought was a pretty good parallel to this story is also just the fact that Customato was basically his father, and essentially, like in essence, his spiritual father. And when you look at it as a son, and we look at father-son dynamics, whenever sons try to get away from their fathers, the legacy that their father's trying to pour into them, like when they have like a real spiritual father or a legitimate father in their life, who is, of course, sent to pour that spiritual legacy into them, and it don't ever end well. So you see him running from what his father had put in him, and you can get by. So a son can get by off of the talents of his father. We saw him, like everybody said, he was getting by off the talents of his father. Just the keeping up with some of the things his dad taught him, he was able to get some victories, but it ain't gonna last. And you look at that today. You look at all the sons, walking around in this country, on this earth, and they knew their fathers, and they were able to emulate some successes just from being in their dad's life. Maybe their dad was a great businessman. Maybe their father was a great athlete or something along that line. They were able to, take little tidbits, but they never reached. They were supposed to go further than their fathers. Had they hearkened to their fathers, their destiny was to build on their father's legacy and go further. So like I look at the example, like my father was a boxer, and he was, you know, a businessman. And so he didn't know anything about basketball. But when he moved me to basketball, just his intellect and his discipline made me a success. So, okay, now I'm a success. I went to college, scholarship athlete, won national championship, blah, blah, blah. Now my son, he's supposed to like really take off, right? My first son, like, okay, now my dad didn't know the sport, but he had discipline. Him giving me that part of him elevated me. So now let me elevate you. But now I'm gonna do my own thing. And then never just sputter around, you know, have some success, you know, yeah, you know, but never reach the full potential that he was supposed to reach. And that's just very unfortunate today. The sons get away from their fathers, the one who God, you know, gave them to get where they're supposed to go and be what they're supposed to become. And you know, sons, when you have a real father, you're never gonna be on his level. And sons need to accept that. You're never gonna be on his level. So just get that out of your head. Be humble. I look back 20 plus years ago, things my dad told me over 2 decades ago, just happening recently. And I'm just crack up. Like, man, it's on a whole nother level intellectual. A whole nother level. Told me stuff was gonna happen 20 years in advance. In my life. Like just even like with friends. I give you an example, like my former best friend. You know, the moment I get my life to Jesus Christ, gone. Okay, that was it. But when my dad was alive, we were just thick as thieves. And I mean, this guy stood in front of a loaded gun for me, a loaded gun. So I'm thinking like, okay, like all the stuff we've been through, like this, like we're brothers to the end. But my father was telling me he said, when it counts, and I never understood that. Like I never got it. Like he was on another wavelength. Like when it counts, I'm like, what do you mean when it counts? He saved my life. Like, what do you mean when it counts? But when it counted, when I gave my life to the Lord, that's when it counted, right? And so now it's just hitting me like, wow, man, he playing chess. I was playing tic-tac-toe. I'm not even checkers. You see, so yeah, when you have like a spiritual father or the dad in your life who's really like the real deal, and sons get away from that, you're never gonna reach the maximum potential you were supposed to reach. You might have little glamour shots here or there. That's it. You're gonna run out of fuel.
All right. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, sir, I was truly blessed with this documentary, and that's something I always wondered about him is why did the change happen? I knew part tidbits of what happened with him, you know, from watching, you know, different documentaries. I knew his trainer died, but I didn't know the in depth of things that had corresponded with him, especially um, just how he was kept. You know, they said they kept him fighting every single month to keep him from being distracted. You know, they kept him busy, and you know, in his trainer's eyes, Casamado, he couldn't do nothing right. He stayed being corrected. You know, before I lift you up, let me correct something else. And I think that's just how the Lord do us when we come to the sanctuary every single week. You know, before I you know, yeah, you did good in this, but I got something else I need to show you. You know, you need to tighten up in this area. So we get that every single week we come to the sanctuary. I also was thinking about how um just what it's led him at veering from that path. Like it seemed like he went over to what is it? Got the name of the religion, Muslim. Like he went over to that religion, and I was like, oh my goodness, like the thing that he said about Lennox Lewis children, like talking about eating them, and I'm like, what? And this ain't Mike Tyson that started back in 85, 86 boxing. This ain't the same person. It's a different human being here, and I can just see those people that he was around, and I started thinking about the evil communication, corrupt good manners, and how he specifically was like that girl with the school shooting. She was sheltered, and then she went off to the university, and God knows what indoctrinated her. Because I was thinking about the same thing with him. He was sheltered, and then he got exposed to the industry, the true side of it, and he went buck wild. Just thinking about the parties and stuff he was indulging in, and you know, flesh liked to get lifted up, and he was to be lifted up. He was a heavyweight champion. Nobody could beat Mike Tyson, and that just really got to his head. And he was young too. 19, 20 years old, 21, with all that fame and money, and that's a recipe for disaster if it's not guided. And it's just sad to see that he went through all those things. But like you said, I do see that he has a very childlike nature. Like, listen to the interviews now, I said, man, he humble enough to admit his mistakes. He's not prideful at all and saying, hey, I ain't do nothing wrong. He's admitting, yeah, I did this wrong, I could have did this better. And I really feel if somebody, I don't know if anybody tried, but I feel like the Lord can still reach him, still get him, because of how, like how you said, how stable he is. I was also thinking about just all the death that occurred around him. Like, that was like close people, that was dying next to him. I was like, man, is that what happened there spiritually? So I wouldn't think, what was going on spiritually for these people that was this close to him to just be passing like that. His I think he had, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 2 children that passed, right? 1 or 2.
I can't remember. I know about one. Was it another one?
I thought I heard something like that.
Okay, yeah, it could have been 2. All right, seemed like we lost you, Brother Jones. All right, that's okay. There we go. But Jones, you back?
Yes, sir. I don't know what happened. I got kicked out somehow. But I was just very grateful for this interview, and I did hear a previous interview before this one with him, and he knew that he was on a decline, and he was one of the persons asked him, are you ready for Lennox Lewis? Why do you think Lennox Lewis want to fight you? And he said, because he knows I'm bleeding. He knows I'm not on top of my game, so that's why he wants to fight me. And I can definitely see that. Listening to Lennox Lewis, he knew that Tyson wasn't maneuvering like he normally did in the past and moving his head and stuff. He wasn't as effective as he was in the beginning. And I just think that's how the devil come at you when you at your weakest point. He's gonna bombard you and really get you to fold. So this documentary was a blessing. I can definitely see the spiritual lessons in it as well. Just how important it is to stay on the path that you've been instructed with. Stay on the path with those things that are being poured into you. So that's all I wanted to share.
Just want to say when he fought Lennox Lewis, that's one of the most cowardice heavyweights I've ever seen in my life. I know if you're old enough to have seen that fight, it happened in Memphis at the Pyramid. I was actually living in Memphis when that happened, and I thought about taking my father to see that fight. And he was like, Lennox Lewis is scared. But Lennox Lewis had one of the greatest trainers in boxing history, Emmanuel Stewart. And he's a great boxing trainer, great. And man, he was so afraid of Mike Tyson. He put all kind of legal clauses in the fight. The Memphis PD had to stand in the middle of the ring to keep them separated. He was such a chicken. Mike Tyson had to be heavily medicated to fight him. So he was doped out. Mike Tyson was not even himself for that fight. And even though he was not in his prime, like he put all these things in there, all these boxing clauses that were real suspect to kind of, protect him from Tyson. And then the whole fight, he was afraid of Tyson. And Emmanuel Stewart lost his voice telling him, like, hurry up and get him out of here before he remembers. I remember his exact words were, hurry up and get him out of here before he remembers who he was. And that's when he finally got the knockout. He practically had to push him, like, go get him, like, before he realizes he can do something to you. And it was just, I lost a lot of respect for Lennox Lewis after that fight. He was just a chicken. He was so afraid of Tyson, so afraid.
Yeah, I had watched that fight, and I thought, because after that fight, Lennox Lewis got cocky, but I thought you would not have beat nowhere in the world. You wouldn't have beat Tyson 4 years ago. Even after Customata had died, if you had fought him right after that, you wouldn't have beat him. And so, and I just thinking about what Brother Linda was just saying. That's the way the devil is. Let's get them out of here before they realize who they are. Now, the sad part is Mike Tyson, I think he's around 60, something like that now. Might be a little bit younger than that. And but there is no more chance for him in boxing. So what was meant to make him great, which, make no mistake about it, he was still a great champion. But now he's left with still what could have been. Not as great as a legacy as what he could have had. Now, and that's what I'm saying. You don't want to become the person sitting on a porch thinking about what you could have done or what could have happened had you applied yourself and had you done it with all your might like the Bible tells us to do. You want to, put yourself out there and do everything with your whole might as unto the Lord, not just men pleasers with eye service. In other words, not just when somebody's looking, but do it all with all of your might. You see, that's what the Lord desires of us. All right. Anyone else want to share? Is another thing I want to say. Now, so where you all were, for the most part, were able to watch it. I'm glad. I wanted you to watch it. I wanted you to see also the brutality of boxing. Did y'all see the brutality? Did y'all see the necks snapping? Folks losing unconscious, losing consciousness, standing on their feet? What it's like to get a concussion just with somebody's fist? I wanted you to see that because I want you to know when the devil punches, he's going for the jugular. The devil isn't just jabbing, he's trying to knock your head off. And so that's why it behooves you to act like that, to understand what kind of enemy you have, because he doesn't have any pity. You see, and that I wanted you to see the brutality of it, so that while we're talking about the spiritual aspect of this documentary, we can also understand. Well, this is what's going on spiritually. The devil's trying to knock me out. He ain't trying to just get his little check and go home after we box. He's trying to kill me in this boxing match. So I better do everything that Customato have taught me. I don't need to rely on yesterday's glory, on my own skills. And listen, I don't need to get offended at Customato because he's not patting me on the back telling me how good I've done or how much I've improved since I've been a part of this ministry. I need to stay grounded. I need to know I got a ways to grow, and I need to understand, you know, listen, brothers and sisters, and I want to make this clear. Your pat on the back from the Lord is you not falling into the junk that you used to fall into. That's your pat on the back. It ain't, it's not, the Lord is wise. He know better than to compliment people because we don't, just by nature, we can be proud, just by flesh and by nature. So God is smarter than that. You see, just revel in the fact that, okay, well, thank you, Lord, because listen, it's Him. Why is the Lord gonna pat you on the back when the Bible says it's Him that by Him you live, you move, and you have your being? Why would He pat you on the back when it's Him that's producing the good works on the inside of you? It ain't got nothing to do with your skill. Is all you're doing is yielding yourself to Him, yielding your members to righteousness. He's the righteous one. So He's not gonna pat you on the back for what He's doing. Does everybody understand what I'm saying now? Yeah, He's the one in there boxing. All we're doing is yielding our fists to Him, you see, to use. And so those are the things we have to think about. I don't know about you all, brothers and sisters, but I want to be the best champion I can be for the Lord. And I don't want my skills to dissipate. I want to use it all for God's glory. All right. Anyone else want to share?
That just brought back to my memory just coaches like men passing things down to other men, because I remember on our championship run winning a game, and then our coach after the game and after we're supposed to be getting, because we had beat the team by a decent amount, and we're supposed to be celebrated. Now y'all suck. Like y'all didn't do it the way you were supposed to do it. So everybody on the line, and people are still in the gym, mind you. So this is This is embarrassing. Like get on the line. Like y'all finna do run sprints in front of everybody, because y'all ain't nothing. Like just talking smack in front of everybody. People in the crowd laughing at us. He. Look at y'all. Y'all gotta run. Y'all just won a game. Y'all still gotta run. And then I just remember when I became a coach, I couldn't wait. I'm like, I can't wait till my players do something silly. I'm gonna do the same thing to them and just giving them the same treatment and just doing it with a straight face, but just laughing inside about it. And then years later, I was at a game and I ran into one of my former point guards. He brought his son out there in the court. He said, son, I want to meet my former coach. He was like, yeah. He said, now just look at them. These are the type of people who coached us. Now look at y'all coaches today, flip-flops. And you're like, this is what I had to go through. Just look at him. Look at him, son. That's what I had to go through. Now look at your coach. Flip-flops, dreadlocks. And I was just rolling. But yeah, it was just that rugged mentality. Like, you guys, y'all ain't, nah, y'all, you were supposed to beat that team anyway. You ain't done anything special. Who do you think you are? You see, you didn't beat them the way that I designed you to beat them. So it ain't nothing. Get on the line. Yes, sir. Like, okay. So I just very grateful for that generation of manhood. Man, it's so missed, that generation of manhood. It's just it was something else. It was special.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, there's a name for that. I remember watching basketball, and I can't remember what team it was, but there was an NBA team that was good, and they could beat anybody. But their problem was they only played good enough to beat the team that they were playing. They didn't put their all into it. You know what I'm talking about, Brother Linder?
It's called playing to the competition.
What's it called?
Playing to the competition.
Okay.
And it's a thing. It's a thing, yes, where you could be a championship caliber team, and then you play a scrub team, and you don't really get up. Like when you play the good teams, you're hyped up, you're motivated. But then when you play a mediocre team, you lower. Oh, we're gonna win anyway. We're gonna win anyway. So you just kind of go through the motions and lollygag, and it's happening. I was fortunate enough to have coaches that would beat that out of you, beat it out of you. They get you, but it happened before. It happens.
And when we spotted teams like that in the NBA, we always knew you're gonna beat the good teams, but it's gonna be the teams that you think you're gonna run over that that's gonna end up beating you and cost you. That's really detrimental, especially in the NFL, because in the NBA you got 5 and 7 games, to prove, hey, okay, so yeah, we lost this game, but now we know we need to step it up, and so we're gonna beat you the next 3 or 4 games. But in the NFL, you lose one game, you out. You're out. It doesn't mean you don't get a redo and, hey, I was having a bad day and we really didn't believe in ourselves. Can we read? No, ain't no redo. You going home, you get to come back next year and try to make the playoffs, you see. And so that's very detrimental. And this is a spiritual lesson for us. You don't have to get complacent because you beat a certain level of a devil at one point. We have to act like the devil is on 10 all the time, and not think that, just not get complacent with the devil. You see that? Just not get complacent with him. I'm gonna say this: in boxing, the knockout punch is always the punch that the opponent don't see. Always, always. If you can see the punch, you can brace for it, and you can maneuver, even soften the blow. Muhammad Ali was good at that. Muhammad Ali was one of the first boxers. He didn't move his head to the left or to the right. He was so fast he could move his head backwards. If you go back and look at so Mike Tyson was bobbing, like doing this motion. That was the peekaboo. Just doing this motion, left, right, and dipping while he's moving back and forth. Muhammad Ali didn't do that. Muhammad Ali was fast enough to now, of course, it takes less speed to move to the left or the right of a punch, but it takes more speed to be able to move backwards when somebody is jabbing you. And Muhammad Ali was that fast. Now, so when a punch is thrown, if you can see the punch, you can maneuver. Even if you know you're about to get hit, you can brace for it. Well, in heavyweight, in boxing, period, the punch that knocks people out is the one they don't see. And in fact, that's part of the skill set of boxing, to set you up, to let you see some punches and get you used to reacting to some of those punches because you see them. But then we're gonna hit you with something else. You see, so if I come out just jabbing, just jabbing, just jabbing, and every now and then throwing a left hook, and then jab and jab. Well, what I'm doing is I'm training you 1, 2, and then duck the left hook. 1, 2, and then duck the left hook. Well, after a while, you become accustomed to that. Well, so if I do that the first 5 rounds, now I've trained you to think this is my routine for the next 7 rounds. But what you're not going to see is me jabbing you once with the left and then hooking with the right, and that's where the knockout punch is going to be. So that's the way the devil is, brothers and sisters. That's how he set people up. Get you, okay, so yeah, devil, I see you coming. I got you. Okay, yeah, devil, I see you coming. I know you coming the same way. Now I got you. I see you, devil. And the devil said, no, you don't see me. I'm setting you up. You know how I'm setting you up? Because you're not following everything that you're being taught. You ain't putting on the whole armor of God. You're not following everything that you're being taught. What you've done is you've taken some of the armor, you've taken some of what you've been taught, and you've applied it to what you're used to seeing coming from me. But the day's coming where I'm gonna hit you with a 1, 2, and then it ain't gonna be just 2 jabs. It's gonna be 3 jabs and a hook right after that from the opposite side, and that's what's gonna get you. Then you're gonna be on the altar crying and wondering, Lord, what happened, Lord? I thought I was somewhere, Lord, please, and thinking you were somewhere. I tell you, one of the best things God does for us is break that pride of thinking we know the routine and we got all of this figured out. That's one of the best things the Lord can do for us. If you always listen, it ain't no time for sleeping in boxing, and in this match either. There ain't no time for it, brothers and sisters. All right. Anyone else want to share?
Yes, sir. I do. I was asking the Lord a question today. It was along. It goes along with this video, and I believe Mike Tyson suffered from that as well. Which is, how come your mind say you can do something, but your body testifies and say you can't? Because in your mind, I can still picture myself doing certain things until I try it, and I was like, yeah, I can't do that no more. That hurt. Like, I don't know what that is. Just how your mind can picture you doing something or doing something you used to do, but when it's time to go do it, you can't do it. So I was like, man, what is that, Lord? Why is that the case where in your mind you can do it, but you can't do it with your body? So that's something I was thinking about with him. He probably got used to doing something, in his mind, yeah, I do this in my sleep, but his body wasn't lining up with that. So I want to know if you know what that is, where when that happens.
Well, I think part of what it is, part of it in as far as Mike Tyson is concerned, part of it is again living off of old glory. There was a time when he could do it, but what happened was he stopped training as hard, but still thought that he could do it. If that make any sense. So that was a part of it. Just not. That's just naturally so. Another thing naturally so for us, and I'm talking about in flesh, is that just comes with aging. It comes with aging, if that make any sense, especially for men. Because men, we pick up stuff, we lift stuff, we do these things, and when we're young, we can do all of that. But after a while, God, now this is the wisdom of God. This is the wisdom of God, and I just want to share this. Uh, young men is for war, old men is for wisdom. I'll say this: nobody goes to heaven fighting and warring with a lot of war on the inside of them. So God gives us mercy when we're young for the war. Okay, you're young, and I've designed you for the war because of your age. I set you up for war, but we can't go to heaven with all of that. So what happens is when we recognize, okay, yeah, I can't do what I used to be able to do. So now we got sons, we got nephews, and we got young men around us to carry on that war, and we give them wisdom now in how to war. So here's the issue: a lot of times when we see our bodies transitioning from war to wisdom, do we accept it? That's where the issue comes at. Am I accepting now that I'm a man of wisdom now and not a man of war? That's what David's people had to tell him that you need to sit down somewhere. What's going to happen to us if the light of Israel get put out? David was the light of Israel. If you die, we ain't got no more fight. No matter how many warriors and how much war we got on the inside of us, if they kill you, we're through. So you got to swear to us, you're not going to war no more. We're not gonna let you come out here no more. Okay. I'll retire. That could be a hard thing for people to do. That's why I don't mind telling my sons, hey, yeah, come pick this piece of paper up for me. I'm getting too old to be bending all the way down to the floor. That's not my calling no more. I'm not about to break my back trying to pick up a piece of paper. So we come to that place where it's just a transition. That's the transition of life. That's one thing now, and I'm glad you asked this question, Brother John, because that's one of the things that I learned from Brother Junior. It was years. Brother Junior, if I'm not mistaken, he stopped driving in his 50s. and he lived to be 90 years old. For the last third of his life, he stopped driving, and still had the car, his old car, parked outside in the front yard. The car that he drove when I was a little boy, going to his church. And I asked him about it. He said, "No, I drive. I don't." I said, "Does that car out there work?" He said, "Yeah, it runs." I said, "Why you don't need?" I turned in my license years ago, Brother John. I said, "Why did you do that?" He said, "Because I made a couple of," he called them bad stops or bad drives. He was driving and his reflex wasn't where it used to be. He said he almost hit somebody. And when he saw that happen twice, he said that was it. He said, "I turned my license in and I stopped driving." And so, that happens with older people. As you get older, maybe sometimes your reflexes are not as what they used to be. That kind of goes along with it. Sometimes, um, and so we transition from one in stages from, where our young people, they take some of the burden off of us as we get older, and that's what we train them to do. I was just telling my wife this the other day, we are looking after our grandbaby, and she's completely dependent upon us. Completely dependent. If she don't eat, if we don't feed her, she's not gonna eat. If we don't change her diaper, she's gonna be dirty. If we don't bathe her, she's gonna be unclean. She's completely dependent upon us. Um, and I was saying, and when she hungry, she gonna fuss. She gonna, she screams when I don't know if to pick her up or toss her across the room. That just freaks me out with all that screaming. I have to be, the grace of God's got to really be there. All that screaming. So it's just like you have to have a bottle on standby, and slingshot it in her mouth when she get to cutting up, because she want her bottle and she want it right now. I don't care what y'all doing. Y'all wake up and fix me a bottle. I don't care if y'all did only sleep 2 hours. And so right now, that's the way life is for her. Our life is based around her now. If she up, we have to be up. And when she sleep, we thank God and we try to get some sleep before she wake up. So that's our life is built around her schedule and her life. The other day, I think it was a couple of nights ago, she woke up and wanted a bottle, and so I put the bottle in her mouth, or the pacifier, and she kept with her grumpiness, like trying to get started. I said, "Oh, the queen want the queen want her back patted." So I was downstairs. "Is this good enough for the queen? Is this good enough for you, Miss Queen?" She just settled down and things like that. And so I was telling my wife, that's the cycle of life. When we first get here, everything is about us. Everything. And everybody else better bow. Everything is about us. I want my diaper changed. I don't want to, I don't know the scriptures yet, so I don't know that I'm supposed to be patient. I don't know anything about patience. I don't know, all I know is I'm hungry right now, and I'm gonna fuss until you stick a bottle in my mouth. So I don't know what you're saying, Paul, when you up there preaching. I'm not held accountable yet. So y'all just better bow to me right now. So that's the way it is. But I told my wife, in the beginning of everybody's life, that's the way it is. People bow and they give you your weight and they help you. They nurture you and they minister to you. But as our job as parents, grandparents, is to make our children know as they grow up that life ain't about them, and everybody ain't gonna bow to you, and it ain't gonna be centered around you. So as she get older, when she turned 3, 4 months old, no, sister, you just gonna have to wait a little while. We're not gonna run to you. Just sit there in your little chair. You don't have the same high screechy voice you had when you were a month old, so it's muffled. We got you muffled now, So, and as they get older and older, so what happens now? So everywhere she go, we got to take her. Everywhere she go is, she look at one part of the room. "Oh, you want to be okay? We'll take you over there. Oh, you want to be on Papa's chest? I'll put you up here." But after a while, You know, all that's now you got to start doing for yourself. You know, we're gonna teach you how to go to the toilet. We're gonna teach you how to wipe yourself. We're gonna teach you how to clean yourself. We're gonna teach you how to dress yourself. You're gonna become independent for what reason? To minister to somebody else, to minister to your elders when they get older and can no longer do for themselves. Come on over here, pick up this piece of paper for Paul, so I don't break my back. You see, so that's the transition. Now, spiritually speaking, that's also supposed to be the transition for us as believers. As believers, when you first come to the Lord, you're gonna get baby, you're gonna, okay, so you just getting here, so we'll just try to help you out. Okay, we don't change your diaper. Okay, you're crying, you want to have a conversation, okay, we'll talk. Okay, this and that. But after a while, no. It's time to grow up. We got some other babies here in this ministry. You need to help change their diapers. It's time for all of that. It's time for that to flip. Now you're supposed to be a help to somebody and not just receiving help. Does everybody understand now? So wouldn't it be a shame if this little girl here was 5 years old and still a lap baby? Still got to change her diaper, still got to do all these different things for her. As people mature, and I want to read a scripture in the book of Hebrews, just real briefly. The 5th chapter of the book of Hebrews. 5th chapter of the book of Hebrews, and we're going to start reading at verse 8. Go ahead and read that for me.
Though he were a son, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered.
How did he learn obedience? By the things which he suffered. Now, this is the thing, brothers and sisters. It's impossible to learn obedience if you don't want to suffer. And that's the problem with this generation. Don't want to suffer. Don't want to go through anything. And then want to complain about how they can't obey God's word and why I have a will to obey, but I can't just get it together. I can't obey. I can tell you why you can't obey. Because you don't want to suffer. Jesus Christ learned obedience by the things that he suffered. Go ahead and keep reading.
And being made perfect.
And being made what now?
Perfect.
What made him perfect? Because he suffered. And he learned obedience by the things that he suffered. Go ahead and keep reading.
He became the author of eternal salvation unto all them that obey.
Unto all of them that do what now?
Obey.
Obey him. And so what does obedience bring about? What brings about obedience? Suffering. To all them, in other words, you can read it this way, unto all them that did not fight against going through something. Go ahead and keep reading.
Called of God and high priest after the order of Melchizedek, of whom we have many things to say, and hard to be uttered, seeing ye are dull of hearing.
So see that. So what he's saying is, I have a lot of stuff I can tell you about Jesus Christ and him being all called of God after the order of Melchizedek. He said, but now you're dull of hearing. Go ahead.
For the time ye ought to be teachers.
Ye ought to be teachers.
You have need that one teach you again.
That teach you how? What now?
Teach you again.
Teach you again.
Which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and are become such as have need of milk, and not of strong meat. For everyone that useth milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. To
discern, in other words, to be further along, to know what's good and evil, knowing the difference between good and so what he's saying here is, because if you start at verse 8, because folks don't want to learn obedience through suffering, and because they fight against going through anything, they remain babes, and because they remain babes, they can't discern the difference between good and evil. The devil is able to deceive them and to overtake them because they don't have the ability to know what's right and what's wrong. This baby, when she grow up, get 1 year old, learn how to walk, there will be times she's going to see her momo or pawpaw touch the stove, maybe cleaning it or something like that. And in her mind, it's going to be, that's going to be, the stove is going to be something that she can touch, because babies, they learn what they see by what they see. But as she gets older, she ought to be able to tell. Now, how many of you can tell when a stove is hot and versus when it's cold? You think you could tell that when you were a baby? No. But when you get older, you learn to discern the difference between good and evil. The things that's going to harm you versus the things that's not going to harm you. Does everybody see that now? So if she don't learn, if she gets to the place where she don't want to hear wisdom, and we say don't touch the stove, if she don't want to hear wisdom, she'll have to learn the hard way, and then even then not learning the hard way, you see, because it's something that happens to people when they don't want to receive correction, and when they don't want to go through anything, any suffering at all, when they just brats and they just want things their way when they want it. They don't. They get to what Paul is saying. They need to be taught again, and they do not have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. They don't have that ability. And because of that, the devil is able to overtake them all the time. Does everybody see that now? So that's pretty much what happened to Mike Tyson. You know, he had a teacher there to teach him and to keep him away from the things of the world and the things that causes boxers to fall, and you know, to keep him focused. He had a teacher there to do that. And I have to make this clear. Although his mentor died, he still had enough to hold on to keep him on the straight and narrow path. But he chose not to live on that straight and narrow, you see that? And it cost him in the end. And that's what happens to us if we don't accept and receive God's word when it's being taught to us. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to it's going to cost us in the long run. Is what happened, and that's not God's will. I want to share with you something. I've had brothers, you know, just even brothers that don't live here. You know, I was just talking to a brother about a month and a half ago who lives in another state, who was saying, well, what you teaching, Brother Bolden? He said, I know, it's got to be some good sisters there that are ready to be wives. He said, so when I move there, I hope that the Lord will bless me with a wife. I said, no, they're not ready here. So you would think that. I said, you would think that women being under my teaching, they'd be ready made, but they're not. They just they live with however they want to live when they get home. In my presence, they're one way. When they get home, they cater to their flesh. So no, they're not. But so let's think about that now. It's a difference in wanting to having a desire to be something, but versus having the discipline to be it. Your desire does not equal discipline. Mike Tyson had a desire to be the heavyweight champion of the world, but he didn't have the discipline to maintain it once he got there, you see. And that's what happens, brothers and sisters. So let's think about that now. How many times have we been looked over because we were not where we were supposed to be at any particular time? How many times have the Lord said, no, they're not ready for this blessing? Because they're not where they still not getting up when I tell them to pray. I tell them, I whisper to them to pray, and they go find something else to do. I tell them to turn off their TV for the day, and they're gonna turn on their TV and find a movie to watch. I tell them to have Bibles, and they won't do it. They living unto themselves. So no, they're not ready. You think about it. The miserable life is the life that's absent of God's blessings that he intended for us to have. I'll say this. If it was God's will for me to only make $1 a month, and that was all he wanted to afford for me, I would be the happiest person in the world because I'm getting what God is bringing to me and his blessing is on it and he's going to multiply it. I'd be the happiest person in the world. I'd be more happier than a person who had was making $10,000 a month, but God intended for them to make $100,000 a month. You're still miserable. You're still miserable because in your heart, you know, even though I'm making enough to live, I know I'm missing out some kind of way. So you're still miserable because you're missing out on what God has for you. So, you know, we're taught to be content with the things that God is blessing us with. You know, we're taught to be content with those things. So if God had told me all I intended for you to ever make was $1 a month, I'd be the happiest person in the world because I'm getting what God has for me. And if I was getting $10,000 a month, if the Lord said, well, you know, it should have been 100,000, I'd be the most miserable person in the world because I'm not living my potential in God. I am missing out. And you know what brings that about, brothers and sisters? Compromise. Customato is dead, and we're going to live how we want to live. Customato is not living in our house. He's living in the back of the sanctuary. He ain't coming home with us. So we going to live. We're not going to train as hard. We're not going to do everything Customato taught us to do. But here's the thing. The Lord knows it. And the Lord ain't just handing out belts. Does everybody understand what I'm saying now? He ain't just giving out championship belts. You got to earn them. You got to be living something. Does everybody understand that now? Now, my prayer is that we get it, brothers and sisters. God don't put nothing in anybody's hand that they're not ready for. He ain't gonna put anything in your hand that's gonna send you to hell or that's gonna kill you. And God knows some of us can't stand to have money because we'll worship it. It'll kill us. It'll cost us our soul. So we better make sure that our soul is prospering. We better make sure. And how do our soul prosper? By us following the workout regimen that God have laid out in this ministry for us to follow. Does everybody understand what I'm saying now? My prayer is that we get it now, brothers and sisters. You know, we're going to have to start obeying this word. You hear me say it time and time again. This word is meant to be lived, you know, and we're supposed to be stacking one on top of the other. All right. Anyone else have anything they want to share?
I'll share. I was going to say something along these lines. So you kind of answered my question before I asked it. Where I was going to say, like, I feel like I want to be obedient. I'm more obedient now than I've ever been, but I know that it's lacking. And I was going to ask, like, how can I be more obedient, like as obedient as I want to be, like how Tyson wanted to be the heavyweight champion, but he needed discipline to get there. And just like those little things you mentioned about the TV, like I don't watch TV, but I'll go on and look at the news and stuff. And I know the Lord don't want me to do it, but I still have been doing that. I've been doing little things like not getting up to pray like when I need to, things like that. And it's like I'm trying to hold on to these things, like a control of my schedule. That's a control of my life still. So if you all could pray for me for that, so that I would overcome this, because I really want to overcome it. I know I have to do what, like, I know what the Lord wants me to do usually in every moment. Like I know, but I'll still disobey it. And I just wanted to confess that. And, I want to overcome this. So.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. You know, and I think that's the mindset of a lot of people. Just look compromise here and there. Okay, I feel like the Lord wanted me to get up instead of, but I'm gonna do something else, and I'll get to that later, and then we don't get to it later. And I say this, even if we do get to it later, we still be disobedient, and we're not going to get as much as we should have been getting out of it. Had we done it at the time the Lord told us to do it. Those are things, compromise is one step of disobedience at a time. Just one little step at a time. Just and to us it can look like, well, that's not that big of a deal. God forgives, and we can excuse our what we would call little disobedience because we're doing the big things. You know, um, and what it falls under is what we read about in the book of Second Kings, when Elisha told Naaman to go dip in the River Jordan 7 times, and Naaman got offended. And so Naaman's servant told him, well, if that prophet of God had told you to do some great thing, you'd have done it. But so how hard is just go dip, go dip in the river. So we bypass all these little things because we want to conquer the great things. And some of us we're so full of faith. If God told us to go dig up a grave, if somebody's been dead for 5 years and I'm gonna raise them up, we go do it. We be at Home Depot buying shovels and got our cameras set up on every tree around the grave. It's about to go down, and y'all everybody gonna get their life to the Lord because of this. But you know what happened? We'll dig the grave up, call Lazarus forth. Lazarus still in his grave snoring, ain't nothing happening. And then we asked the Lord, well, Lord, I had the faith for it. Look at my shovels, look at my phones, and I got all of, TikTok, and I got Facebook Live, and all of this. God, I done set the whole world up to see this miracle. And the Lord said, the miracle would have been you getting up and reading the Bible when I told you to. Your faith, your faith is built by the obedience of the small things. You see, your faith is built in those things. You see that, and so that's where we would go wrong at. We love the show, and we think that God likes the grandstand like we do. The big things, Lord, the big things. And I think about this. Every war is won with the small battles. It's not, when you think about war, you can't think about it as two groups just meeting together up in a football field somewhere and fighting until the death, and then whoever got the most men standing, that's who win at the end. You do a study on war, and you see it's very, very, very strategic. They winning the war one battle at a time. That's how the war is won, one battle at a time. And that's the way we win, one battle at a time. What battle? Okay, Lord, I'm gonna crucify my flesh. I'm turning this TV off today. Lord, I'm crucifying my flesh. I'm gonna pray when you told me to pray. Lord, I'm crucifying my flesh, and I'm not going to speak back, and answer again in these things. Lord, and then so when it comes to the big things, when those other things come up, you're ready for it. They don't catch you off guard, you see, because you've already been training yourself to be obedient in those small things. All right. Anyone else want to share?
I wanted to say something as you were talking. It reminded me like that same story that about Naaman going to dip and how basically the thought came to my mind about the message that you had preached kind of around that story about how like basically he had to do exactly what the prophet told him to do. Every part of what was said to do, he had to do it exactly like that if he wanted to see the healing go forth. He couldn't basically sidestep because I think I might have just had the thought, like kind of how you could be thinking within yourself, but kind of talking to the Lord and thinking about like, Lord, what am I missing? Like what? I guess kind of what we're talking about, like wanting to know what things am I not doing that I'm supposed to do so that I could be obedient in all things. Like, what am I lacking in? And that came to my mind. I think I was cleaning the bathroom, and that came to my mind about um how you had told me to journal a couple of years back, and the way that you had told me to do it was to journal about the things basically that the Lord exposed in me. And I hadn't been doing that consistently. And as a result, like, the Lord made it very clear, like, you're not reaping the benefits of what that's supposed to do for you because you're not doing it. And you're not doing it the way that I told you to do it. Not consistent. Because I think when you had first told me to do it, like, you didn't tell me like, oh, you gotta do it every day or every week. You just said to do that. And in my mind at that time, I was like, oh, like, okay, I ain't gonna be doing this every day. I'm gonna just kind of do a summary at the end of the week. And I really didn't think nothing of it at that time. Just kind of thinking, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna just. But then now at this point, it's like I be forgetting if I don't write that stuff down. I don't remember every single thing. It's almost like it just hit me. If you listening, the Lord will say something every day that you need to take hold of, and I'm just like, oh shoot, there's a lot of stuff that I done missed that I don't remember or can't recall all of the details that probably would come in handy now if I had written it down, because sometimes I go back to those journals and read certain things. I'm like, oh, I remember this. Okay. And like it's helpful for some stuff that I might be facing now, even though it was things that bought out or whatever. But that was something that I was like, dang, I had forgot that thought came to me. Like, I think that was yesterday, the day before. And so when you was talking just now, I was like, okay, Lord, I'm not doing everything I'm supposed to do. And I need to get back to that. And really, it just made me want to know even more things. Like when you were talking about, like for me, the inconsistency with getting up and praying. Like I don't mind getting up and praying. It's the getting up, the praying I don't mind. It's just like I guess for whatever. Some days I'm like, all right, I'm getting up, Lord. This is the day. And the other days, I literally watch myself. I get up out the bed and I'm like, I'm too tired. I can't even. I'm falling asleep while I'm kneeling. So this is not even not serving no real purpose. So like, I guess for me, like I know I had made up my mind, like, Lord, I don't care if I got to walk around, if I got to do something, because now I can fall asleep while I'm on my knees. So I can't kneel and if I'm like sleepy or something, like when I'm first waking up. But just using it as an example, how you were saying all of these little compromises, they add up to you be ready to go dig up this grave, but you're not willing to just get up for a few minutes to pray or, write a journal, for me personally, about what the Lord, has used you to expose in my life or to share with me for me to get better. So that's just stuff that I'm gonna do different, but just wanted to share because that stuff came to my mind as you were talking about it.
All right. Anyone else want to share?
Yes, sir. I shared what I got out of the video and got out of what we was just discussing about the compromising. So one of the lessons that I saw in the video with Mike Tyson was, and just me being from like a family of boxers and being myself when I, used to box, some of the, tactics that we taught, you know, um, looking at them spiritually, like when you first get into that, you have zeal for the boxing and zeal for the sport. And it kind of remind me of, when we first give our life to the Lord, how, we have this infamous zeal, like where we thrive, we hearing from the Lord, we do everything, that the Lord say, or, that as our shepherd tell us to do, or, live how we know to live, and then somewhere, along that, we authorize compromise. And one thing I saw with Mike Tyson was he got too entangled with the things of the world, after his trainer passed away and stuff, and you could tell like that kind of the things that he was caught up in life, that kind of played with his spiritual, growth, like what he could have been, and I look at that, how my life has been set up as well, you know, um, with like compromising and it's like I wouldn't say that, it's like that thing where it's like you're afraid to just go full fledged for the Lord, and like my question, what I've been, praying about and asking the Lord is like,
why is that troublesome to me? Like, why am I so afraid to just let go and just do that? And when I saw this video, it kind of, was showing me like the spiritual sides of it. Like, you're you have pretty much like pride for all the wrong reasons. Like you think you're ahead farther than what you are, but really you're stuck here. You're stuck at a spot of your life where it's and I've been praying and seeking the Lord for that. I still haven't gotten the answer for it, but I know the Lord answered me. And I think last week's message with when I was paying attention to one of the points that you was harping on, and it kind of let me know where I fall short at and where I continuously fall short at, and stuff like that. And it's compromise. It's like it could be something that I know to do, right or whatever, and just that other side of it is stronger than the good side, if that makes sense. Like let's just say, like, I don't know if y'all remember, like, growing up, like where it was like the cartoons where it was like the devil on one side and God on the other side. It's like every time the devil, well, the Lord says something, the devil's there to like trump past it. So it's like a stronger point on the things that's like comfortable with flesh, if that makes sense. And I can remember, like, the Lord brought to my remembrance sometime last year where it was like certain things, when I you know dealt with like lust real bad, where I was at the prime of it, where I was you know pretty much having eyes for other women. I was being wicked towards my wife, and stuff like that. And I remember we was watching a video that you authorized for us to watch. I'm trying to think what it was called. I know it was the video where they was talking about the fragrances, and I know I had spoke out about that, how what the Lord spoke to me about, like the colognes and fragrances and stuff like that. In my heart, well, I'm gonna say it like that. I'm gonna say, in my mind, I understood what was said and I knew the lesson. I seen the wickedness and everything about it, but my heart didn't line up with it. Like, in my heart, I didn't receive it the way I should have. And the situation that happened, it was like, not, it was really like probably like a couple days later. I went to work one day, and I was just like, okay, well, I normally soak myself in the fragrances. So I said, okay, I'm not gonna do that this time. I'm just gonna, spray it 2 times. I don't want to, I was, my mindset, I think, and that's what had me stagnant with it, was my mindset was, man, I don't want to throw away $200-300 worth of fragrances, even though I did. Like, my wife, she threw hers away immediately. I still had mine's, like, not my, I threw the good ones away. I let her see that I threw the expensive ones away, but I kept the cheap smell good, the cheap ones that smell good. I had them kind of stashed because I didn't want to let go. And so this is how the Lord showed me and dealt with me on that. So we had fellowship that day, and I ended up, I could have got off work earlier, uh, and somehow, like, my whole day was just like chaotic, like it was just like chaotic in my mind. Like, it was, I was knowing to do this, then I compromise, and before I know it, I forget what the Lord told me to do or what it was I had to do. So I ended up getting off a little late, and it kind of was making me run late for fellowship. So on the way to work, I sprayed, not keep in mind, I sprayed two sprays of the cologne, just real quick. I sorry, it won't hurt nobody. I don't smell that good. I just, I'm a big guy, I sweat. I don't want to, be stank at work and, stuff like that. So I sprayed them 2 sprays, and that was it. Now, before I did it, I was hesitant. It was like the Lord was tugging on me not to do it. Like, just you should have thrown them away. Should throw them away. I didn't listen. I was like, oh, but it ain't that bad. It's just 2 sprays. Ain't nobody even gonna smell it. I drive a tugger. Stuff like that. So, long story short, on my lunch break, I was going to the gas station to get me something to eat, and I got pulled over by the police. Now, He got behind me on my way back to work. I don't know his reason for getting behind me, but this is the crazy thing about it. When I sprayed those 2 spritz in the morning time, it was like I saw a quick vision of me getting pulled over by the police. I was just like, all right, well, let me just make sure I'm doing the speed limit. I'm not going to speed. I'm not going to, drive crazy and, things like that. But only trying to get out of what the Lord is going to, design. If the Lord ordained it, is no getting out of it, but I didn't see it that way. So long story short, I get pulled over, at my lunch break. And, I was very compliant and everything. I didn't give him trouble. He didn't give me trouble. But it was 2 of them. One of the guys, he was just real nasty, and this not the first time I heard he pulled a lot of people over. Like a lot of people that got pulled over on the lunch break, at Pacific. So when he pulled me over, he come up to me. He just, license registration. I give him my license, give him my registration. And I gave him my insurance and stuff, and he said, do you know why I pulled you over? And the first thing I did, I looked at the speedometer. I'm like, well, in my mind, I'm like, well, I know I wasn't speeding. I was going the speed limit. So I'm like, no, sir, I really don't know. He said, I don't know if you was nervous or anything like that, but you kind of drove kind of crooked and went on the I think it was the yellow line a little bit. So I'm like, oh, well, I was just, trying to tell, like, I seen you get behind me. So I was trying to, I didn't know what was going on. There was a car over here and you got behind me. So I was going to, get over to let you go or whatever. He was like, no, so he asked me, he was like, do you mind if I search your car? I said, no, I don't mind, So he was like, all right, could you step out of the car? So I stepped out of the car and, they tore my car up, searched my car or whatever. I didn't know what they was looking for, anything like that. But it was just, you just seem kind of, paranoid, and stuff like that. And so I'm like, nah, but in my mind, I'm like, I'm paranoid because the Lord showed me this. So it was like I was having like a kind of like a shock moment. So that was the first situation. So he ended up, letting me go. And he was like, just he was like, I'm gonna write you a note to give to your boss to let him know you got pulled over. You're not gonna get no ticket. That's not worth getting a ticket. You're free to go. Enjoy your day. Yeah, they ran my name, and what was surprising is I didn't have no record or anything. So when they saw that, when I opened my ID, when I opened my wallet to give him my ID, he saw I had 2 IDs with 2 different names. So right after that situation, I ended up throwing. No, I think I lost my wallet because that was another thing. The Lord told me to get rid of your old ID to have your old first name on it. I didn't do it. I kept it. So somebody broke in my car and stole my wallet. So I was like, I had to replace everything in it. So I didn't, I compromised again, and the Lord had to smack my hand for it. And so I was, grateful. So that was the first situation. I was very grateful. I'm like, man, like, even though like he could have just been nasty and just gave me a ticket just because, so I was just grateful for that and grateful, that everything went smooth. But after that, like I immediately went to worshiping the Lord and like praying, like and talking to the Lord, like, Lord, listen. Like in my head, I'm like, Lord, I understand I ain't doing nothing wrong, anything like that, but I hear you. After this situation, I'm gonna toss these, So first thing first, as soon as I got back to work off my lunch break, I threw I think I had 2 of them. I threw both of them away at the job. Didn't look back and nothing, just tossed them. Now, even though I obeyed in that, after I disobeyed, the Lord wasn't done yet. He still had to, show me like this is what happens when you compromise. So now I'm off of work, I'm rushing, but I'm not really speeding because the speed limit 55 coming down to 100. So me, by the time I get from 100 to 64, I forget the speed limit drops to 45 at the time. I forget. So I think I was probably going like 50, but I was like kind of decelerating. The same cop that the same cop that did did my wife's when somebody broke in my car and stole her purse and my wallet, the same cop that did the what do you call it, did like that came out and that talked to my wife and stuff about it, that was the same cop that stopped me on the way coming. So she was very nice about it. I ended up pulling over, and it meant, as a matter of fact, we had fellowship at the Pujo's house that day. And that was when they still stayed over here in Whiteville. So I was rushing. And then right when I got pulled over, I said, there go that second spritz. The second spray of that cologne. I was like, there it go. So I got pulled over, and it was no arguing with her. I already know. I said she came up smiling because I was smiling when she was walking up, and she was like, you know what I put? I said, yes, ma'am. I was doing a little over the speed limit. I'm sorry. I was like, I'm trying to, rush. I was like, my church meeting up and I'm kind of late. It's not an excuse, but I'm sorry, So she was like, all right. She was like, let me just run your name real quick. So she ran my name and pulled up the my address, and she was like, didn't I just do a police report for your wife? And I'm like, I said, yes, ma'am. That's why I was smiling, because I noticed you when you walked up. So she was like, yeah. She was like, well, just try to slow it down for me. Go on, pray for me. Go on, do what you got to do. I know you got to get with your fellowship. So I ain't gonna hold you. Just try to slow it down. And right then and there, the Lord showed me, like, see, like, that's what it looks like when you compromise, and that's what it looks like when you disobey in the small things. Because like who would think that, like, not nobody that's knowing like this ministry, but who like others, like who would think, like, you spray, it's just spray. That's what we think, but it's bigger than that. It's about, okay, you already dealing with lust, so then who are you attracting? And stuff like that. So I wasn't seeing the detriment. I wasn't seeing that part about it. I was just seeing that, oh, it's just, spray. It's nothing, but the Lord cleaned that out of me, and I was grateful for that. And, it kind of, showed me a lot. And then this video, it also showed me too, what it looks like when you're a lazy Christian. Like, when you start off, fighting and start off with the zeal, and then when all that dies down because, anything, the entanglements of the world, or, just, you just don't have that thrill no more. Or like you said earlier, if you trouble yourself with the thought of it's too boring, or, we can't do this or we can't do that, and I believe I might have said that before, or I can't remember if me and my wife was telling somebody that, or we might have agreed, at that time. So, that was also made clear to me too, not to have that mindset, not to even, think of anything that way. If you live all the way right for the Lord, then you'll see, the good side of it, and, that will trump all. But those were just a couple of things that, I wanted to share that was clear to me from, the video and, the discussion that we was talking about.
I want to go back to the book of Hebrews to help us to understand something about that, and just piggybacking off of what Brother Thomas just said about, a lot of people, I imagine, when they're part of a holy ministry, when they're part of, well, and I hate to just use that label, but of any ministry that God has set apart, that they're going to be holy and they're going to teach holiness, that will usually be something that the devil uses to turn their hearts against God, is what they can and can't do. Like all of the rules, right? We can't do this anymore. We can't do that anymore. But I want to read verse 14 in the 5th chapter of the book of Hebrews, and hope maybe we'll get a better understanding of this now. Look at what it says. Well, no, in fact, let's go back. We'll go back to verse 12 and read on. It says, for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong drink. For everyone that useth milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. Now, the part that we want to us to really examine in this scripture is having your senses exercised to discern both good and evil. So, if you go to a ministry, listen, this ministry, This ministry is designed to bring out world champions for God. This ministry is designed to train Mike Tysons. So you see what happened in the video. Mike Tyson was separated from the world, literally. Literally, his life was boxing. When Costamato died, he relaxed and he started mixing boxing with the world. The problem was he did not see how detrimental the world would be to his boxing career. And so when believers come to Christ and they give their life to the Lord, and if they still have a mentality of what they can't do, versus what they used to do, then it's because they can't discern both good and evil. In other words, if they understood the things that the Lord is trying to keep them from is evil inherently in and of itself, then it wouldn't be a choice. In other words, I don't have a choice to go out and do those things because that's evil. See, to the baby Christian, everything is up for grabs. Everything is up for grabs. I ought to be able to do this and still go to heaven, or I ought to be able to do that and still go to heaven. And because you're still a baby, you don't know that it's bad for you. So it just looks like to you Christianity and living for God with your whole heart is a boring life. And then after a while, you will begin to find fault with Custamato. You're just doing too much. It doesn't take all of that to get a belt and keep it. It doesn't take all of that. I shouldn't have to be just, separated and just out here in the country somewhere, just boxing. That's all I do is box. When am I going to go out and get to live? So to the unskillful, to those that are babes in Christ, then it just looks like you're being kept from fun, and it really don't take all of this to be safe. And that's where the devil gets you. But as you grow in the Lord, now first things first, you're going to have to submit to Custamato. You just got to take his word for you. The stuff is bad. And you ain't got to go out there and get experienced in it to realize that it's bad. You see? And so, but to the babe, everything is up for grabs. I ought to be able to still do this. I know other people that's doing it, and it seems like their spiritual walk is okay. You see? And that's what the devil is dependent on. Your immaturity, you thinking you know everything, and I'm just hard, and it don't take all of that. But brothers and sisters, when folks get to hell, they realize it took all of that and some. The unfortunate thing is some folks have to have their name called in hell before they realize that, if that make any sense. And so that's what this is talking about. They're unskillful in the word. They still have need to be taught. They still haven't. They just think everything is just everything that's bad is they're gonna get the revelation that is bad, if that make any sense. And that's not the way it works. You know why Mike Tyson stopped doing the peekaboo style? Because he didn't think it took all of that to win championships. He didn't think it took all of that to win boxing matches. He thought, well, my power is enough. I got a right hand and a left hand, and you don't want to be on the other end of it. So if I catch it, it's over with. So he dropped the peekaboo style because it was costing him something in his flesh. Does everybody understand what I'm saying now? And I want to make this clear, brothers and sisters. It don't ever get easy to the flesh to live for God, ever. It is always going to take crucifixion, always. It don't ever get easy to the flesh to live for God, ever. It's going to always cost you something. If it's not a sacrifice, it don't mean anything. So God is not the Holy Spirit's job to make our flesh more accepting of the things of God. Our soul is what, and our spirit is what receive those things, and through that we mortify the deeds of the flesh. But it is not ever easy to flesh to do the things of God, ever. It don't, and I want to make this clear. It ain't gonna ever be easy for your flesh to serve God, ever. Does everybody understand what I'm saying now? It's not gonna ever be easy for your flesh to serve God. It never. Now I hope we get that, brothers and sisters. So what are we supposed to get out of this? Out of this, you're gonna have to crucify flesh. The Bible don't tell us just keep serving the Lord, and after a while it's gonna get easy to your flesh, and you'll understand a little bit. But no, you got to crucify flesh when if you want to serve God, you got to crucify flesh, and that ain't gonna ever be easy, ever. What the only thing that changes is our love for God grows, and we're more willing to crucify our flesh because we understand the benefits outweighs the sacrifice. That's the only thing that changes. Does everybody understand that? I'll tell you this, brothers and sisters, I weigh around 300 pounds. It ain't never felt good for me to get on my knees, ever. Does everybody understand what I'm saying now? Ever. It ain't ever, that ain't never felt good. Does everybody understand what I'm saying now? It's always easy for me to pray in my bed. That's always easy. Does everybody understand that now? Yeah, that's easy. Lord, you hear me whether I'm laying down or whether I'm on my knees, you know. So what really is going on? Lord, I don't feel like crucifying my flesh, so I'm going to just stay in bed. Oh, wait a minute. What was I just? Oh, I was supposed to be praying. Okay, Lord, you know what? The devil got me that time, but it's me and you now. You see? So does everybody understand what I'm saying now? Don't ever expect it to get easier for your flesh. The only thing, the benefit, the only thing that comes to you is your love for God grows, and the benefit of obeying God outweighs the sacrifice that your flesh have to make. Does everybody understand that now? So I want us to understand that for those of us that's waiting on it to get easier, it's not. It's not. You're gonna learn obedience through the thing you suffer. God ain't gonna take away the pipeline that He uses to bring about your obedience. Does everybody understand that now? Brothers and sisters, if serving God was easy to the flesh, everybody would be serving God. It's not, but it's not meant to be easy to the flesh. We have to crucify our flesh. All right. Anyone else want to share?
Yes, sir. I would like to share what I got out of the video from watching it. Is pretty much along the lines of what a lot of people have already shared. It was really a lot of spiritual lessons in that video. And one of the biggest things that stood out to me as well was the difference in him when he had that, that head, that shepherd. When it was, you could see the difference in him when he had somebody there that he honored. Because I thought it was something that when he was saying that when he was doing those things, it was to impress and to, make his mentor, Mr. Customato, proud, and he wanted to do everything he said. He did it exactly how he said to do it. And then not only in the ring, but just in his personal life, I thought it was something how he kept saying, his mentor kept saying, if he, he doesn't have distractions, if he's, stays committed, if he does all of the things that he was saying that if he does, he will be the greatest. And it was something that after he died and, of course, the downfall that happened, everything that he said, if he continued to do this would be the outcome. It was the opposite. He didn't continue to do those things, and he went downhill from there. And it was something because when it talked about the part about, of course, the people coming in, those wolves, like how they came. He was basically like this sheep out there without a shepherd, and how they came in and took advantage of that. It really took me by surprise when I heard him say that, yeah, Customato told me that there are people out there like this. So it's like, okay, you were getting a lot of wisdom, from this this man. He imparted a lot in you. But of course, if that's not continued and you let go of that reverence, then it's easy to let those things slip from you. When he said that, that was like one of the biggest things that stood out to me. Like, oh, you all had some conversation. I'm pretty sure stuff that he hasn't even shared, on that, in interviews of certain things and wisdom that, I'm sure that his mentor imparted in him, but just, slowly but surely those things started to slip away, and he was hanging out with the wrong crowd and just different things and outcomes and getting around people that he shouldn't have been involved in. And of course, they, took advantage of the opportunity that they saw. And it just his life was just totally different. I like how they did the comparisons in the video because um, I didn't watch boxing and things like that, so I know who Mike Tyson is, of course, because even if you don't watch boxing, you just heard that name before. And when I was watching the videos, they were showing the difference and comparing them, how he was and then what he became. And I was like, oh, wow, that is a big difference. I do remember in the past my husband showing me videos of Mike Tyson's punch because it was something he showed me a while ago. I can't remember what we were talking about, but he showed me something a while ago on YouTube with Mike Tyson. And he was talking about his hit and how hard it was and how he knocked people out in a few seconds. And I was like, what? And he was like, let me show you. And then he showed me a video. And I was telling him, he was having to rewind it because I wasn't seeing the punch that knocked the person out. It just looked like they was falling. And I was like, wait. But when you were talking, and you were talking about like how the devil is, how he'll, get you with that left and, it's just like, okay. I started going back to that conversation me and my husband had because I thought that was funny. I was like, okay, yeah, he did have some hands there because even I'm not in the ring. I'm looking out and I'm still having a hard time. I'm like, oh, okay, I saw it that time, so he got him there or whatever. So, and that was something, so that was like how you were saying you're glad that we watched that. I'm glad that we did as well because I thought about that when you were just sharing about that not too long ago. And I was like, oh, I remember me and my husband having that conversation a while ago about Mike Tyson's hits. And it was, yeah, you can tell he had some powerful hits. And I think about like how you were saying that's how the devil is, and he's going to constantly be that way. And I see why it's important to take on what we're taught, and be under that covering of our authority and our shepherd and, whoever our head is in any capacity. And because when you're out there, the devil coming, he doesn't care. And, he's going to be throwing those blows that we saw. So it was just really a blessing, and I really enjoyed the video and the conversations about it and all the lessons that came from that because it was really a lot of lessons in there. That was what I wanted to share.
All right. I want to share just something just real briefly before we say goodnight. And I want to say also thank you all for joining us. I really appreciate that. And when I say that, I sincerely mean it because I know, that you could be doing other things and, but I sincerely appreciate you all joining us and in these discussions because I know that you don't have to join us, but I sincerely appreciate it. And so I want to just share something. A couple of dreams that Sister Jones had. One dream. Well, I don't know. I guess I could look it up, but basically, she had one dream. Not long after I had the heart attack back in 2021, she had a dream, and I think it was right around the time when you all had come to Louisiana to Slidell when we were having a church service there at the hotel. And it was around that time she had a dream that I had died, and it was chaos in the ministry. People were leaving the ministry, people were not strong, and people were leaving and basically discouraged. And so then she had a dream last year in December, and I want to read this dream. She said, this was in December of 2022. She said, I had a dream that Apostle Bolden had passed away. I remember in this dream, it was definitely different. Everyone seemed to be okay, talking casual. No one was crying and acting out, because apparently that was going on in the first dream that she had back in 2021. She said it wasn't chaotic with people leaving. We were all meeting together, gathered, but I understood it wasn't a funeral and his body wasn't there. It was like a wake without the body being there. As everyone is talking, I was standing there and understood clearly that our direct connection to God is gone. Meaning, like the level of word we got, a personal answer directly from God. It's hard to explain, but I understood his calling more. Part of me felt like I wasted time. I understood he was gone forever. When he was here was the time to get all we could. But I understood that there was no one in the ministry with that type of calling that we could go to anymore. We had to get all we could as far as on the extreme level he was on while he was here. I started to feel a sense of panic within myself. I do remember seeing a difference in this dream compared to the last one I had, with the chaos happening after he passed. Sister Bolden seemed stronger spiritually, so compared to the last dream, people were not leaving and no one was crying. Now, I wanted to share that dream and the differences between the two dreams, because in the first dream, it seemed like I was taken unexpectedly. In this dream, I was taken, but nobody was crying. That means that everybody was prepared. It wasn't something sudden, if that makes any sense. So everybody was prepared and everybody was on a certain level already with understanding that. But the warning that the Lord was giving in this dream was this: one day, and I want you to understand this, and I hope you get it, brothers and sisters. One day I'm going to be taken from y'all. And I don't know how many years away that's from now, or how many months, whatever the Lord decides, that's his business. But one day I'm going to be taken. And so today, now, it's important that you get what you're getting, that you really hold on to what you're being taught, because it's not going to be that way after I'm gone. Does everybody understand that now? So today is the day to get what you're supposed to get, because one day I'm going to be taken from you. Does everybody understand it? And I'm going to be gone forever. And I ain't going to be mad about it. Y'all aren't going to be upset about it either, if that make any sense. You're not going to be grieving for me, because you're going to be more spiritual then than you are now. So you're not going to be grieving. You're going to be, you're going to be just as grateful as I am. I'm going to be glad to be gone, you see. So you're going to have that understanding. But here's the thing, the Lord is admonishing you all to receive from your costumado now. Get those things in your heart, because if while I'm alive, you're still wrestling with whether or not it take all of that and all of that, you're not going to pick up on it after I'm gone. If the living voice is not inspiring you to go out and win these battles and to fight, with everything that you're being taught to fight with, then the dead voice ain't gonna be able to convince you either. If my living presence don't do it, YouTube, you're not after I'm gone, YouTube ain't gonna be enough for you if you're not getting it now. If y'all understand what I'm saying now, that grace is gonna be taken from you. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Now, somebody else who wasn't here, God might give them the grace for YouTube to hear that voice there. But you all ain't gonna, it ain't gonna be there for you if you're not able to get it while you're here and I'm still alive. You see, so I want to make that clear. One day I'm gonna be taken from you, and it's best to learn what they call the peekaboo and hold on to it. You see, hold on to it while I'm here. That way, when I'm gone, you don't know how to do anything else but that. You see. And so that's one of the reasons why we wanted to go over this, brothers and sisters. Hear the living voice, hear the one that's here now speaking to you. Take those things into your heart and live by them, because when I'm gone, if you don't have an incentive now while I'm alive, you're definitely not going to have an incentive when I'm gone, you see. And so that's my prayer, brothers and sisters, that you all will get that, and so this dream was not given to announce to everybody that I'm about to leave. This dream was given to announce to everybody the mindsets that people are going to have when I am gone. It's not going to be it's not going to be kind of like what the devil had pronounced in the past, if that makes any sense. Where I'm going to be for a full age of whatever the Lord have called, and I'll be able to let you all know when it's my time, and it ain't going to be no grieving, if that makes any sense. That's what was shown in the dream. You're going to be mature enough not to grieve for me in that manner. You're not going to feel sorry for me and all of that. That's not going to take place. You're going to be in a place spiritually where you can endure that. But here's the thing: are you going to be in a place where you're holding on to everything that you've been taught? You see, that's God's desire, and that was the purpose of this dream. All right. Anyone else want to share before we say good night?
Yes, sir. I'm thankful for the discussion and us watching the video. And something that stood out to me was just Mike Tyson, being able to endure correction and like the difference in his life once he wasn't being challenged anymore. And also what you were sharing about not being a babe, like basically like maturing and not like so you can help. And that stood out to me a lot because that's something that I've had a struggle with. And also like not compromising as well, because the Lord is not gonna, like how you said, not gonna give any belts if you're compromising. So I'm just thankful for everything that was shared.
All right. Anyone else want to share?
Yes, sir. I was really grateful for the video and this discussion. And one thing that really stood out to me was something that was said. I think it was in the last message about how the Sunday, not this past Sunday, but the one before, about our spiritual war. The first spiritual battle is with our flesh. And one of the things they shared in the video that I really, really got a hold of was when it was talked about how it was important that Mike Tyson controlled himself. And I noticed like that was the battle there. And I think for me, I'm learning that more and more, about my walk with the Lord. Like, oh, so I would be looking for the devil to come in a way that was like like not to where I was battling with my flesh. But now I'm starting to realize, oh wait, I need to be checking myself and making sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and that I'm not being in a place where I'm putting myself in a position to be defeated. Does that make sense? And there were times I would go to Sister Bolden and I would be like passionate about making this one decision or making this move, and I would say it to her, and then I was pretty much like in a way, like I would be like, okay, so Sister Bolden, like, what do you think about that? Or, like what should I do? Or, am I thinking the right way? And she would tell me no. I'd be like, oh, like I really like I guess it was just passionate about like making this one decision, like, okay, and I was gonna do this, and she would tell me, no, don't do that, because such and such will happen, and you'll find yourself in a mess. She had told me that on multiple occasions, and I was really grateful because it just made me see how she would help me, like Customato help um Mike Tyson, and just like staying level headed, if that makes sense, like and not like thinking that like getting beside myself, and helping me with those things, um and just that was something that really stood out to me. And just us talking about it recently in that last message about how flesh is the first spiritual war for us, and it's not this whole thing on the outside of us. And another thing that stood out to me was when it was said he was always when Customato was alive, he was always looking for. I think they were saying something along the lines of looking for new spots to plant his feet when he was fighting and stuff, and that stood out to me because I guess in my mind, I don't know, can correct me if I'm wrong, but I was looking at it like he was always looking for ways to like perfect what he was doing and his strategy and how he was fighting. And I was just like, wow, like I look at that spiritually as like I need to be looking for ways, once I realized, oh, okay, so I'm getting a hold of, my flesh and doing what I need to do concerning that. But, basically his motto was perfection. And I really appreciated that because in the world, I would call myself a perfection. And, you know how they say, some people, y'all, it don't take all that and you overthink stuff. And sometimes I think with track, I would think that like maybe I'm just over the top, but no, I think I was willing to sacrifice, and I realized it takes that in my walk with the Lord, willing to make those sacrifices. How they said Mike Tyson realized he had to make sacrifices, at some point in time in his career. And yeah, it just showed me like just different things I need to keep in mind, living for the Lord and just to not get lax, because that was a drastic turn that happened with him. Like, I mean, I was shocked, and it was hard for me to look at the boxing, I guess, because I'm just like, this is a lot. They are just like fighting each other, and I'm a woman, so I'm not used to seeing that, I guess. So it was a lot for me, but you could see the difference though. When they showed him when he was moving really quickly, and then they showed him when he was just missing it, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like, how can you not? Yes, sir. Like it's like he slowed down drastically, and I'm just like, wow, I can see how that's happened to me before, like happened to me before spiritually, where uh I don't know, like I just you take a few miss, like I guess victories, and then then you just get lax to the point where it's like you just getting defeated all over the place, and I just really appreciated this discussion in the video, and it really encouraged me to, like he was saying, it was important for him to please his mentor. And I was like, you know what, I was like, I never thought about it that way. That was something that was important to him at a point in time. And just not getting away from that honor and stuff like that, and keeping that in mind. And yeah, that's all I wanted to share.
All right, I want to share something just real briefly. We have to think about, so you all saw very clearly what the difference was between the Mike Tyson that Customato trained versus the one that showed up after he let go of the teachings. So think about that as a believer. The first Mike Tyson that you saw was the one that had the zeal for God, if that makes any sense, as a believer. The second one that you saw was the one that had gotten common with his walk with the Lord. So those are the things you have to think about. Where today, where are you? Which Tyson are you in the ring? Are you the one that's just doing the bare minimum and getting punched in the face? Now, I want to just talk about this spiritually, just real briefly. Every Customato don't die. And there are instances in boxing, in real life in boxing, where Customato continued to live. Now, not the man Customato himself. I mean, good trainers. You heard Brother Linda bring up Emmanuel Stewart, who was just as good of a trainer as Customato was. But everybody don't continue to follow that. So let's say, for instance, Customato continued to live. Let's say, for instance, Mike Tyson just get tired of fighting and working that hard to train, and so he wants to be more relaxed. So now he's in the ring still. Customato is his trainer, but he's starting to lose fights now and starting to take more punishment because he's refusing to do it the way Customato taught him to do it. Now that happened in boxing in real life among good boxers who could have been greater versus trainer and with trainers who taught them a certain way and taught them to win. So what decision does the boxer make? I'm a fire Customato, and I'm gonna get me a trainer that's gonna train me the way I feel like I ought to be trained, because now I'm losing matches. Well, is it Customato's fault that you're losing matches? That you've lost your zeal? Or is it your fault because you just hard-headed and you don't want to put in the work to the way Customato is training you to do? So you see, it's a catch-22. It's very hard to be Customato because Customato don't change. He knows what it takes to win. It's just sometimes the boxer, the Customato can't get in there and box for you. So sometimes the boxer just gets offended because Customato ain't switching the game up, according to what he feel like doing that day. You see? So people leave Customato. They leave shepherds, God's shepherds, all over the world, wherever they may be. They'll leave and go find another trainer and still lose boxing matches, when all they really had to do was just stick to where they were and to do what they were trained to do. Brothers and sisters, in this ministry, you will not lose one boxing match if you do exactly what you are taught to do. The devil will not defeat you if you do exactly what you're taught to do in this ministry. In this ministry, if you do what you're taught to do, you won't lose. The question is, are you willing to go through the training? Are you willing to continue? Like what the Lord said, if you continue in my word, then are you my disciples indeed. Does everybody see that? Mike Tyson was not a disciple indeed of Customato because he did not continue in what Customato had taught him. Does everybody understand that now? I want to say this before we say goodnight. This discussion was in no way intended to look down on Mike Tyson. I don't believe if he had heard this discussion that he would think he was being attacked. It is meant for us as people in general. I believe if we're going to grow as human beings, we have a right and we should have a mindset to look at other human beings and talk about their victories as well as their failures. My prayer, one of the reasons why I'm so personable with people, and one of the reasons why I don't mind sharing my victories as well as my failures, because my prayer is that when I am gone, you will use and you will learn from my mistakes and from my victories, my obedience. I hope you will learn from my mistakes and the results of those mistakes, and that you will also learn from the victories and what came with the victories in my life. So I want to make that clear for us, that we're not, we just wanted to look at this man's life and garner from it what we could learn. You see, and my prayer is that we've learned something tonight, that we've saw the lessons that God wanted us to see, and my prayer is that we will continue to learn, that we will continue, not just with Mike Tyson's life, but just in general. You see, I believe in learning from people. I believe in learning from people and getting motivated by what I see. And my prayers are that you all will do the same. That we will learn to look at people's lives and not necessarily to put them down or anything, but to just learn from their mistakes, because people have already lived. If that makes any sense, we're not standing on the sideline waiting for people to fail. They've already lived. They've already made mistakes. Maybe they've gotten up from the mistakes, whatever the case may be. But in the meantime, I want to learn, how did he fall? Okay, so I know not to run that way. That's what we're supposed to learn, brothers and sisters. So we want to just get those things out there so that we can be better. I want to be the best believer that I can be for Jesus Christ, and I want to do what I'm supposed to do while I'm in this earth, because once I'm gone, that's it. Once we leave this earth, we don't come back and relive it. You see, we don't come back and relive it. We don't get a do-over, if that makes any sense. And so that we just want to admonish us now while we're here. Let's grow up. Let's learn the lessons we're supposed to learn. Let's not despise the discipline of God and how he's teaching us, because it's for a reason. And let's learn to embrace the way that God teaches us, and the things, the details, because every single detail means something. Every single detail that God teaches us is designed to help us to dodge the bullets of the devil, his fiery darts. All right, so brothers and sisters. So again, I want to say thank you all for joining us, and I really pray that you all. I know I enjoyed this discussion. I had an unction last night. That's the reason why I said what I said before we got off Skype last night. I believe we're going to talk today because it just came to me. And then this morning I had a dream where I was being asked, so what you going to do at 6 o'clock? So I knew then, okay, so the Lord wants us to, he really does want us to talk about it. So, so my prayer is that when we come together, we coming to fight, we coming to win. I want to see some bobbing and weaving. Don't be going straight in on the devil and letting him punch you in the face. You can dodge those punches, brothers and sisters. You can dodge them. You don't have to get licked in the face by the devil. God don't intend for the devil to whop on you. Now God is the one that set up the boxing match. So he intends for you to win, but he don't intend for you to come out bruised either. Does everybody understand that now? It is possible to fight with the devil and not be scarred afterwards, and not be hurt, if that makes any sense. And so my prayers is that we will not only get the victory in this fight that we're in, but that we will come out on the other side not looking like we've been through, if that makes any sense. I've seen boxing matches where they just tore each other up, and I didn't know who won or lost. Both of y'all done lost. Both of y'all going in the hospital right after y'all leave here. So y'all both lost, as far as I'm concerned. Both of your eyes are shut and crying, just okay. So yeah, somebody, I guess they got to pick a winner, but both of y'all done lost. When we lay down this tabernacle, it ought not to be beat up, if that makes any sense. It ought not to be beat up, brothers and sisters. All right. So again, we want to say thank you all so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you all and this weekend, and I'm just grateful to the Lord for our fellowships, and I tell you, I enjoy our discussions, and I tell you, this is the life to live. I enjoy it, and I love it, and I'm grateful to the Lord for it. All right, so brothers and sisters, we'll say good night to y'all. I love y'all, and let's get in this ring and let's make the devil wish he hadn't got in there with us. Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.
Love y'all.
Have a good night.
Yes, sir. Good night. Love y'all.
Good night.
Good night.